Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Cross Naruto. We are thrilled to present today's story. What if Naruto was the primordial seal god, the divine sage of RWBY Naruto x Glynda x Salem? If these stories bring joy to your day, please consider liking and subscribing. Every bit of support helps us continue this passion project. Now, prepare yourself for an amazing tale. Chapter 1, Divine Intervention. The sky above Veil ripped open like a wound. Not the familiar green portals of Atlas Tech or the swirling red vortices of a maiden's power, this was something else entirely. Golden light spilled through fractures in reality itself, bizarre symbols spiraling around the edges that seemed to burn themselves into the retinas of everyone watching. Glynda Goodwitch dropped her coffee mug, barely noticing as it shattered across her office floor. The pressure in the air had changed, making her ears pop painfully as she rushed to the window. Whatever this phenomenon was, it wasn't in her considerable experience with Remnant's mysteries. Ojban, she breathed into her scroll, are you seeing this? Her boss's voice came back maddeningly calm. Indeed. Rather unexpected timing. Timing? You knew something like this might happen. Glynda couldn't keep the accusation from her voice. A pause. Not precisely this. But the signs have been accumulating. Before she could demand clarification, a deafening alarm blared through Beacon's communication systems. The automated emergency broadcast cut in, Level 1 Grim Incursion. All huntsmen report to defensive positions. This is not a drill. Glynda was already moving, her riding crop extended as she sprinted toward the landing pads. Around her, students scrambled in organized chaos, the older ones heading to assigned defensive sectors, the younger being herded toward shelter zones. Through the massive windows lining Beacon's corridors, she caught glimpses of the unfolding nightmare. Grim. Not dozens. Not hundreds. Thousands. A dark tide flowing across Vale's outskirts, drawn inexorably toward that pulsing wound in the sky. God damn it, Ojban, she muttered, propelling herself onto a bullhead where Team RWBY was already strapping in. Professor. Ruby Rose called out, silver eyes wide but determined. What's happening? I was rather hoping you might tell me that wasn't your sister's idea of a graduation prank, Glynda replied dryly. Yang snorted despite the tension. Even I'm not that extra, Professor, this energy signature, it's like nothing I've ever seen, Blake said quietly, amber eyes fixed on her scroll's readings. It's making all my monitoring systems glitch. Whatever it is, Weiss added, checking Mertenaster's dust chambers with practiced precision, it's driving every Grim for 100 miles straight toward Vale. The bullhead's engines roared to life as Glynda took the co-pilot seat. Then we'll just have to make sure they don't get there. The defensive line was already fracturing by the time they arrived. Glynda vaulted from the still descending aircraft, using her telekinesis to slow her fall. Around her, the scattered remnants of Vale's first response teams fought desperately against the overwhelming dark tide. Holding pattern Delta, she shouted, voice amplified by her semblance. Funnel them toward the clearing. The experienced huntsman adjusted instantly, creating a narrowing corridor of destruction that herded the Grim toward an open area where they could be engaged more efficiently. Team RWBY hit the ground running, immediately falling into their well-practiced formation. But for every Beowulf that dissolved into shadow, 3 more emerged from the tree line. Glynda felt sweat trickling down her spine as she hurled debris with devastating precision, crushing Grim after Grim. This wasn't sustainable. Vale's defenses were designed for incursions, not invasions. Pull back to secondary positions, she ordered, watching a young huntsman barely escape the claws of an Alpha Ursa. The sky cracked wider. The golden light intensified to blinding, forcing everyone, human and Grim alike, to shield their eyes. Then, silence. Glynda blinked away spots in her vision to see a figure descending slowly through the tear in reality. A man, or something man-shaped, wrapped in golden energy that took the form of flickering flames. As he neared the ground, details became clearer, wild blonde hair, facial markings like whiskers, and eyes that shifted between blue and an impossible crimson with slitted pupils. Most striking were the symbols, intricate, glowing patterns that crawled across his exposed skin and the strange orange-black clothing he wore. They weren't tattoos or dust infusions, they moved like living things, rearranging themselves continuously. The stranger touched down in the no-man's land between the defensive line and the momentarily hesitating Grim. He rolled his shoulders, looking almost bored as he surveyed the battlefield. "Man, you guys really let things get out of hand here, didn't you?" His voice carried easily despite its casual tone. He scratched the back of his head, peering up at the sky tier he'd emerged from. "Whoops, probably should close that before something nasty comes through." He flicked his wrist, and the impossible wound in reality sealed itself with a sound like thunder. The Grim, recovering from their momentary stillness, surged forward, sensing in this newcomer something that triggered their deepest hunger. A massive Deathstalker charged directly at the stranger's unguarded back. "Look out!" RWBY shouted, already moving in a blur of rose petals. But she needn't have worried. Without turning, the blond man simply raised 2 fingers. A symbol detached itself from his arm, expanded in midair, and slammed into the ground beneath him. Instantly, golden lines raced outward in a perfect circle, forming an intricate pattern of interconnected symbols. Every Grim that crossed that line simply stopped existing. Not dissolved like when killed, they vanished between one moment and the next, leaving no trace. The battlefield fell eerily quiet. "There," the stranger said cheerfully, turning toward the stunned huntsman. "That should buy us, about 10 minutes before the next wave figures out how to get around my containment seal." Glynda found her voice first. What are you?" His grin widened, revealing slightly pointed canines. "Name's Naruto Uzumaki." "As for what?" He shrugged. "Depends who you ask. Some places I'm called the Divine Sage. Others, the Primordial Seal God. I personally think that's all kinda pretentious, but hey, you live a couple 100,000 years and titles start piling up." He walked toward her with a casual confidence that belied the impossibility of what he'd just done, extending a hand. "And you're Glynda Goodwitch, right? Figured I should introduce myself properly before all hell breaks loose." Again. Salem felt at the moment the veil between worlds tore open. Deep in her crystalline fortress, she'd been communing with the pools of annihilation when power older than anything she'd felt in millennia rippled through the fabric of Remnant itself. Her crimson eyes snapped open, ancient memories stirring from corners of her mind she'd long ago sealed away. "Impossible," she whispered, her pale fingers gripping the arm of her throne so tightly that cracks appeared in the black stone. The seers floating around her chamber went wild, their translucent bodies pulsing with agitated light as they sensed their mistress's shock. Through their connection, she could feel the disruption to the Grim consciousness, something was interfering with her control. "Tyrion," she called, her voice eerily calm despite the storm raging within her. The faunus assassin skittered into the chamber, already prostrate. "Yes, my goddess. Something has arrived in Vale. Something that should not be here." She rose from her throne, moving to the massive window that overlooked the blighted landscape. "I need you to observe only. Do not engage. Do you understand?" Tyrion's manic eyes widened with curiosity, but he knew better than to question. "Of course, my queen. Your will is my command." As he departed, Salem turned her attention to the pools below her fortress. The black liquid was roiling unnaturally, responding to the intrusion. She placed her hand just above the surface, not quite touching. "After all this time," she murmured. "You were supposed to be a myth. A story told by gods to frighten each other." In the reflection of the pool, her eyes narrowed. "What game are you playing, Seal God?" Back in Vale, Naruto was getting frustrated with the bureaucracy. "Look," he said, pacing the conference room where Vale's emergency council had gathered along with Ojban and select huntsmen, "I get that you're cautious. That's smart. But we've got maybe 3 hours before the Grim regroup into something that'll make that last wave look like a warm-up exercise. Ozpin studied the stranger over steepled fingers. There was something disconcerting about being in the presence of this being. To everyone else, he appeared as a young man perhaps in his early 20s. But to eyes that had lived as long as Ozpin's, there were unsettling hints of something vast and ancient lurking beneath that casual exterior. Mr. Uzumaki, Ozpin said carefully, you've made extraordinary claims about your nature and abilities, demonstrated power beyond anything in our recorded history, and yet provided no explanation for why you've chosen this moment to intervene in our world's affairs. Naruto stopped pacing, his blue eyes suddenly sharp. Because your world is breaking, Ozpin. Or should I call you, Ozpin will do fine, the headmaster interrupted smoothly, earning a knowing smirk from Naruto. Right. Well, Ozpin, I'm here because the cosmic seals holding remnants reality together are failing. Have been for about, few thousand years now. Ever since two divine brothers threw a cosmic temper tantrum and a certain someone got cursed with immortality. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Glynda looked between Ozpin and Naruto, sensing undercurrents she couldn't fully grasp but understanding enough to know this stranger had knowledge no outsider should possess. That's preposterous, General Ironwood cut in. We have no evidence of, Jimmy, Naruto interrupted, ignoring Ironwood's glare at the nickname, I like you. You seem like a straight shooter. So let me be straight with you. Your world exists because of seals I placed eons ago, before your two brothers ever showed up claiming to be gods. They built on my foundation without understanding it, and then they broke their toys and left. He turned back to Ozpin. The damage has been accelerating. Salem's little crusade, your counterbalance, you're both just symptoms of a deeper problem. The seal array governing the barrier between life and death is failing. That's why the Grim are becoming more organized, Glynda realized, pieces falling into place. More intelligent. Naruto pointed at her. Bingo. Give the professor a prize. His joking tone faded. The Grim were never supposed to exist as they do now. They're a manifestation of the imbalance, reality literally coming apart at the seams and darkness leaking through. Council member Toria leaned forward. And we're supposed to just trust that you, a complete unknown, have the answers to a problem we didn't even know existed? Nope, Naruto replied cheerfully. Trust needs to be earned. So how about I start by stopping the unprecedented Grim migration that's about to hit Vale from all directions in, he pulled out what looked like a pocket watch but was covered in moving symbols, about 47 minutes. The council erupted into chaotic debate, but Ozpin's quiet voice cut through. What exactly do you propose, Mr. Uzumaki? Naruto's expression turned serious. I need access to Beacon's vault. The silence that followed was deafening. That's not possible, Ironwood stated flatly. It's either that or watch Vale fall today, Naruto countered. The original foundation seal is anchored there. I need to reinforce it before, the building shook as an explosion rocked the city perimeter. Warning sirens began to wail. They're early, Naruto muttered. Something's accelerating them. Glynda was already on her feet, scroll in hand as she accessed Vale's defense grid. Northern perimeter breach. The wall defenses have been sabotaged, this wasn't just Grim. Ozpin stood, his decision made. Ms. Goodwitch, escort Mr. Uzumaki to Beacon immediately. Use my private bullhead. He turned to Ironwood. General, coordinate the defense of the city. Council members, please proceed to the secure bunker. Ozpin. Ironwood protested. You can't seriously, I can, I have, and we're out of time. Ozpin's usually calm demeanor cracked slightly. If he wanted to harm us, James, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Naruto clapped his hands together. Great. Road trip with the scary teacher. This'll be fun. Glynda shot him a withering look as she strode toward the door. If you slow me down, I'll leave you behind. Wouldn't dream of it, Professor Goodwitch, Naruto replied, falling into step beside her. As they rushed toward the landing pad, he added more quietly, for what it's worth, I really am here to help. I certainly hope so, Glynda replied. Because if you're not, I'll find a way to make you regret it, God or not. Naruto's laugh was surprisingly warm. I believe you would. The flight to Beacon was tense, the horizon behind them illuminated by the fires spreading through Vale's northern district. Glynda piloted with grim efficiency while Naruto sat cross-legged on the floor of the bullhead, eyes closed, fingers forming strange positions. What are you doing? She finally asked, curiosity overcoming her reserve. Sending shadow clones to help with the defense, he replied without opening his eyes. Can't be everywhere at once, well, actually, I can, but you know what I mean. Shadow clones? As if in answer, golden light flared around him, and suddenly 3 identical copies of Naruto sat beside the original. They grinned in unison before vanishing in flashes of yellow light. They'll buy us some time, the real Naruto explained, opening his eyes. Each has about 20% of my power, enough to hold back the horde, not enough to fix the real problem. Glynda adjusted their course slightly to avoid a flock of Nevermores in the distance. And what exactly is the real problem? Think of reality like a building, Naruto said, moving to sit in the co-pilot seat. Remnant's foundation was designed by me, way back when this dimension was still forming. The brother gods came along later and built their own structure on top, life, death, magic, all that jazz. But they didn't fully understand the foundation, and when they left, they damaged the connection points. He pointed toward Beacon in the distance. Under your school is one of the primary anchor points, a seal nexus that helps maintain the barrier between the living world and, let's call them, other states of existence. The vault you built there isn't coincidence. Something in you, he gave Ojpin's chair a meaningful look, remembered the importance of that spot, even if you didn't know why. And these seals you create, they're not dust-based. Not semblance. Naruto shook his head. Much older. Think of dust as a derivative, an echo of the original power that shaped this world. He held out his hand, and symbols appeared on his palm, glowing with inner light. These are the original language of reality. The code that existence runs on. The bullhead began its descent toward Beacon's private landing pad. Below, students and staff hurried about in emergency protocols, unaware of what was truly at stake. Almost poetic, Glynda mused, bringing the craft down smoothly. Poetry, math, magic, they're all just different ways of trying to describe the same thing. Naruto rose as the engines powered down. Ready to see what's really under your school, Professor? Ojpin's elevator codes brought them directly to the vault entrance. As the doors slid open revealing the vast, cavernous space beneath Beacon, Glynda watched Naruto carefully. For all his casual demeanor, something changed in him as they stepped into the vault, a subtle straightening of his posture, a focused intensity replacing his easy grin. This place has been modified, he murmured, running his fingers along the wall as they walked. But the essence remains. Ahead of them, the vault centerpiece came into view, the massive mechanism designed to house the Fall Maiden's power. Naruto barely gave it a glance, more interested in the floor beneath it. There, he said, kneeling and pressing his palm against the stone. Under all your fancy technology, the original seal array is still active, barely. Glynda's scroll buzzed with an incoming transmission. Ojpin's voice came through, tense and hurried, the situation in Vale is deteriorating rapidly. Something is coordinating the Grim, they're bypassing defenses, targeting communications infrastructure. Mr. Uzumaki's, duplicates are making a difference, but we need a more permanent solution. Working on it, Naruto called over his shoulder. But you've built a lot of junk on top of what I need to access. He pointed to the maiden transfer device. That needs to move. Glynda frowned. That equipment is delicate and vital to your ongoing chess game with Salem, yeah, I know. Naruto stood, dusting off his hands. But right now, it's sitting on top of the master control seal for Remnant's reality barrier, so unless you want Grim literally raining from the sky within the hour, we need to shift it. Before Glynda could respond, the vault shook violently. Dust and small debris rained from the ceiling. That's not good, Naruto muttered, closing his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, they had shifted to that unsettling crimson. We've got company. My shadow clone at the northern defense point just got taken out. Taken out? By what? Not what, who? Someone with power almost as old as this world. His expression darkened. Salem's made her move sooner than I expected. Another tremor, stronger this time. Warning lights began flashing throughout the vault. Naruto made a frustrated sound. No time for finesse. He formed a series of rapid hand signs, then slammed both palms onto the floor. Professor, you might want to step back. Golden light erupted from his hands, racing across the floor in expanding patterns. The maiden transfer device shuddered, then rose slowly into the air as the floor beneath it began to transform. The solid stone rippled like water, revealing intricate patterns that had been hidden for millennia. Glynda watched in astonishment as a massive seal array appeared, easily 50 feet in diameter, composed of symbols similar to those on Naruto's body but vastly more complex. At its center, where the device had stood, was a spiraling design that pulsed with faint, uneven light. There you are, Naruto said, almost tenderly. Been a while, old friend. He stepped into the center of the array, the symbols on his body beginning to glow in harmony with the floor patterns. This is gonna take a few minutes. If anything tries to interrupt, I'll handle it, Glynda stated firmly, readying her riding crop. Naruto shot her a grateful look before sitting cross-legged at the array's center. He closed his eyes, and the glow intensified as he began a complex sequence of hand movements. Glynda positioned herself between him and the vault entrance, trying to ignore the increasingly violent tremors shaking the academy above. Her scroll buzzed constantly with emergency updates from across Vale, each worse than the last. A particularly strong shock nearly knocked her off her feet. The vault entrance doors buckled inward, metal screaming as something powerful struck them from the other side. Whatever you're doing, Glynda called over her shoulder, you might want to hurry it up. Naruto didn't respond, deep in concentration as the seal array beneath him grew brighter. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he manipulated energies Glynda could sense but not comprehend. The vault doors gave way with a thunderous crash. Through the dust and debris stepped a figure that made Glynda's blood run cold, a woman with skin pale as death, veined with darkness, and eyes that glowed crimson like dying stars. Salem. So, the Queen of Grimm said softly, her gaze fixed on Naruto's working form. The legend returns to reality. Glynda stepped forward, power gathering around her riding crop. You will come no closer. Salem's lips curved in amusement. Brave little witch. Do you even understand what he's doing? What he is? I understand he's trying to save this world, Glynda replied. Something you seem determined to prevent. Save it? Perhaps. Salem took another step forward. Or perhaps rewrite it to his own design. Gods are seldom altruistic, Glynda Goodwitch. Behind them, Naruto's voice rose in a language neither woman recognized, ancient syllables that seemed to resonate with the fabric of reality itself. The golden light pulsed brighter, casting their shadows in sharp relief against the vault walls. Salem's expression changed to one of alarm. No, he cannot be allowed to complete that sequence. She thrust her hand forward, and a wave of pure darkness surged toward them. Glynda reacted instinctively. Her semblance flared to its limits as she seized control of every loose piece of metal, stone, and debris in the vault, forming a swirling barrier between Salem and Naruto. The impact of dark energy against her shield sent her skidding backward, but she held firm. You don't have the power to stop me, Salem said, gathering another, larger wave of darkness. She doesn't need to, came Naruto's voice, suddenly right behind Salem. The Salem facing Glynda melted into shadow as the real Queen of Grimm spun to confront Naruto, who somehow stood between her and his still meditating form at the center of the array. Shadow clone, he explained with a grin. Useful trick, right? Salem's eyes widened. You're interfering with powers you abandoned eons ago, Seal God. This world has moved beyond your designs. Yeah, that's the problem. Naruto's clone crossed his arms. You and Oz have been breaking my stuff for way too long. Time for some overdue maintenance. At the array's center, the original Naruto's chant reached a crescendo. The entire seal pattern lifted from the floor, rotating in three-dimensional space around him as he made one final hand sign. Primordial sealing technique, reality anchor restoration. The floating seal collapsed inward, concentrating into a sphere of pure golden light in his hands. With a shout of effort, Naruto slammed this sphere into the floor at the exact center of where the array had been. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, reality itself seemed to shudder. Glynda felt it as a momentary sensation of weightlessness, of being everywhere and nowhere at once. Salem screamed, not in pain but in what sounded almost like recognition. Outside, across Vale and beyond, every Grimm suddenly stopped moving. As one, they lifted their heads toward the sky, and then, like smoke in a strong wind, began to dissolve. Not the usual dissolution of a killed Grimm, but something more fundamental, as if the very concept that allowed their existence was being rewritten. In the vault, Salem staggered backward, her form flickering between her corrupted appearance and something more human. What have you done? She gasped. Naruto rose slowly from the center of where the array had been, now replaced by a small, permanent seal etched into the stone. His clone dissipated in a puff of smoke. I've restored the boundary between realms, he said, looking more tired than before but satisfied. Sealed the leaks in the veil. The Grimm as they've existed are being reset to their original purpose, natural manifestations of negative energy, not corrupted semi-sentient weapons. He took a step toward Salem, who backed away. And you, Salem. I've reconnected you to the proper flow of life energy. You're still immortal, that curse is beyond even my ability to fully break, but you're no longer a conduit for the corruption. Salem looked down at her hands in disbelief as the blackened veins slowly receded, leaving pale but human-looking skin behind. Her eyes, though still red, lost their burning glow. Why? She whispered. After all this time, why would you return to help a world you abandoned? Naruto's expression softened. I never abandoned it. I've been watching. Waiting. There's a balance to these things, gods shouldn't interfere too much. He shrugged. But sometimes, you've gotta make an exception before everything falls apart. Glynda cautiously lowered her makeshift barrier, scroll buzzing with reports from across Vale. The Grimm were vanishing everywhere, the attack mysteriously ended as quickly as it had begun. This isn't over, Salem said, her voice regaining some of its steel as she adjusted to her partially transformed state. What you've done changes the game, but not the players. No, Naruto agreed. But it gives everyone a fighting chance at something better than endless stalemate. He grinned suddenly. Plus, now that I'm back, things are gonna get a whole lot more interesting around here. Salem's eyes narrowed. We will speak again, divine sage. With a gesture that seemed to tear at the fabric of space itself, though with visible effort now, she disappeared. The moment she vanished, Naruto's shoulders slumped and he sat down heavily on the vault floor. Man, that took more out of me than I expected. This world's rules are weirder than I remembered. Glynda approached cautiously, scrolls still displaying frantic updates from across the kingdom. Vale is reporting the Grimm have virtually disappeared. You actually did it. For now, Naruto clarified. I've reset the board, not won the game. The really hard part comes next, helping both sides figure out a better way forward. He looked up at Glynda with unexpectedly vulnerable eyes. I could use some help with that part. Divine sage or not, I've never been great at diplomacy. Despite everything, Glynda found herself fighting back a smile. Somehow that doesn't surprise me. She offered her hand. Welcome to Beacon, Mr. Uzumaki. I suspect things around here are about to become very educational. Naruto took her hand, his grip warm and solid. Just what I was hoping for, Professor Goodwitch. Just what I was hoping for. From her fortress, now strangely quiet without the constant presence of Grim, Salem watched the sunrise over a landscape slowly beginning to change. Patches of corrupted ground were gradually reverting to normal soil where healthy plants might someday grow. She studied her reflection in a mirror, still pale, still red-eyed, but more human than she'd been in millennia. She could feel the change within as well, the all-consuming rage had dulled to something more focused, more comprehensible. Divine Sage, she murmured, tracing the now visible seal mark that had appeared on her wrist after his intervention. After all this time. She turned as Tyrion entered, looking disoriented and diminished without the grim essence that had partially sustained his madness. My queen, he said uncertainly. The grim, I don't understand what's happening. A new player has entered our game, Tyrion, Salem replied. Someone even older than I am. Someone I once knew, in another life. She walked to the massive window overlooking her domain. Gather our remaining allies. This changes our approach, but not our goal. As Tyrion left, Salem allowed herself a small, private smile that held both bitterness and something almost like anticipation. So, the seal god returns at last, she whispered. Let's see if you remember our last encounter as clearly as I do, Naruto Uzumaki. Chapter 2, Ancient Truths, You Want to What? Ojban's coffee mug paused halfway to his lips, his eyes narrowing at Naruto. Road trip, Naruto repeated, sprawled casually across the chair in Ojban's office. Me, Professor Goodwitch, maybe some of those kids with the color names. There's 6 major seal sites across Remnant that need checking, and after what happened in Vale last week, I'm betting they're all degrading faster than I thought. Glynda fought the urge to pinch the bridge of her nose. A week since the Divine Sage had burst into their world, saved Vale from catastrophic grim invasion, and upended everything they thought they knew about Remnant. A week of endless questions, political fallout, and watching this ancient being raid the cafeteria's ramen supply with childlike enthusiasm. These seal sites, she asked, keeping her voice professional despite her exhaustion, they're similar to what you repaired beneath Beacon? Yep. Think of them like support pillars for a massive bridge. I fixed the central span, but if the supports crumble. Naruto made an explosive gesture with his hands. Ojban set down his mug. And you believe Salem will target these sites now that her connection to the Grim has been recalibrated? She's already moving, Naruto confirmed, his usual playfulness momentarily absent. I can sense disturbances at the Vacuo site. She might not control the Grim like before, but she's still got followers and serious magical mojo of her own. Glynda checked her scroll, mind already calculating logistics. We can't spare many huntsmen from reconstruction efforts. The damage to Vale's infrastructure was substantial. Don't need an army, Naruto countered. Just you, me, and maybe a small team for backup. Too many people will just attract attention. Ojban's eyes met Glynda's over his glasses. Something passed between them, decades of silent communication condensed into a moment. Team RWBY has proven themselves exceptional, Ojban suggested. They're still students, Glynda reminded him, though without her usual conviction. After what those girls had accomplished during the attack, the line between student and huntress had blurred considerably. Naruto perked up. The ones with the scythe, glyphs, Shadowcat, and the blonde brawler. Perfect. They've got the right energy signature, especially Silver Eyes. Energy signature? Glynda questioned. Naruto waved dismissively. I'll explain on the road. Point is, they won't interfere with the seal work like some might. Plus, they seem tough enough to handle trouble. Ojban tapped his cane thoughtfully against the floor. Very well. Ms. Goodwitch will accompany you along with Team RWBY. I'll make the necessary arrangements. Where do you intend to begin? Naruto stood, stretching like a cat. The island of Patch. There's a seal node hidden in those forests that's been pinging me since I arrived. He grinned at Glynda. Pack light, Professor. We leave at dawn. As he sauntered toward the elevator, Glynda turned to Ojban. Are you certain about this? Not in the slightest, Ojban admitted quietly. But our usual caution has only maintained a stalemate with Salem. Perhaps it's time for a different approach. A divine wild card, Glynda murmured. Indeed. Though I suggest you pack an extra supply of coffee. Ojban's lips quirked. Something tells me you'll need it. Ruby Rose couldn't contain her excitement as she bounced on her heels at the airship dock. We're going home. And on a super-secret ancient god seal mission. Indoor voice, Ruby, Yang reminded her sister, adjusting her gauntlets. The super-secret part means not announcing it to all of Beacon. Blake looked up from her book. I still don't understand why he specifically requested us. Because we're awesome. Yang suggested. Weiss rolled her eyes. More likely because we were present when he arrived and he doesn't know many other people yet. Actually, it's because you four have unusually compatible energy signatures with primordial seal work. The girls turned to find Naruto approaching, a small backpack slung over his shoulder. Gone was the strange orange-black clothing from his arrival. He now wore cargo pants, a black t-shirt with a spiral design, and an orange jacket with the sleeves rolled up. The moving seal markings were still visible on his exposed forearms. Energy. Signatures? Weiss asked skeptically. Yep. Everyone has one. Most people's would cause interference with the kind of work we're doing. He pointed at Ruby. Especially you, Silver Eyes. Your lineage goes way back to some of my earlier visits to this world. Ruby's eyes widened. You knew my ancestors. Created them, technically, Naruto said casually, checking his watch. Need specialized bloodlines sometimes for seal maintenance. The Silver Eyes were meant to be guardians against reality breaches. The team stared at him in stunned silence. Oh look, Professor Goodwitch is here, Naruto observed cheerfully, completely missing or ignoring their shock. Glynda approached, pulling a compact suitcase. She'd exchanged her usual teaching attire for practical field gear, still impeccably tailored but designed for combat. I see everyone's punctual. The transport to Patch is ready for departure. About that, Naruto interjected, slight change of plans. I've got a faster way to travel. Before anyone could question this, he bit his thumb hard enough to draw blood, slammed his palm to the ground, and called out, summoning technique. A massive cloud of smoke erupted, causing security alarms to blare across the docking area. As it cleared, the group found themselves face to face with an enormous toad wearing a vest and carrying what appeared to be a giant pipe. Yo, Naruto, the toad greeted in a booming voice. Been a few centuries. This the new project? Glynda's riding crop was already in hand, while Team RWBY had instinctively formed a combat formation. Everyone, meet Gamakichi, Naruto introduced proudly. One of my oldest friends and our ride to Patch. Your ride is a talking toad the size of a bullhead, Blake stated flatly. Gamakichi gave what might have been a toad's version of a frown. Got a problem with amphibians, kitty cat? Blake's bow twitched. He's so cool. Ruby gushed, silver eyes sparkling as she zipped around the giant toad at semblance speed. Can he do tricks? Does he fight? Why is he smoking? Is that bad for toads? Heh, I like this one, Gamakichi chuckled. Glynda cleared her throat. Mr. Uzumaki, Beacon Protocol requires that we efficiently complete our mission, Naruto finished, jumping onto Gamakichi's head and offering his hand down. This is efficient. Gamakichi can get us to patch in 20 minutes instead of 2 hours. Yang shrugged, stepping forward. I'm game. Always wanted to ride a giant toad. That's a sentence I never thought I'd hear, Weiss muttered, but followed nonetheless. Minutes later, after hasty explanations to beacon security and a few stunned onlookers, they were airborne, Gamakichi launching himself in tremendous leaps that sent them soaring over Vale's skyline. This is awesome! RWBY shouted, clinging to one of the toad's warts while her cape fluttered wildly. Beside her, Glynda maintained a death grip on her riding crop, using her telekinesis to ensure none of them went flying off during the jarring landings between jumps. You could have warned us, she said tersely to Naruto, who sat cross-legged atop the toad's head as comfortably as if he were in an armchair. Where's the fun in that? He replied with a grin that momentarily made her forget he was supposedly ancient. Besides, everyone needs a good toad jumping experience at least once in their lives. I will revise my lesson plans accordingly, she deadpanned, earning an appreciative laugh from the so-called god. As Vale receded behind them, Naruto's expression grew more focused. The seal site on Patch is hidden beneath an old temple structure. Your people probably think it's just ruins, but it was designed as a camouflage. There are several ruins in Patch's forests, RWBY called over the rushing wind. Dad used to warn us away from them when we were kids. Said they were structurally unsafe. Smart guy, your dad, Naruto replied. The defenses around these sites can be cranky if approached wrong. Blake, who'd managed to continue reading despite their unusual mode of transportation, finally closed her book. If these seals are so important, why hide them? Wouldn't it make more sense for people to know about and protect them? Knowledge is power, Shadow Cat, Naruto said, his blue eyes momentarily shifting to that unsettling crimson. And power attracts those who'd abuse it. Better they stay hidden until needed. We're approaching Patch, Gamakichi announced, adjusting his trajectory toward the forested island. As they descended toward the tree canopy, Glynda noticed something odd, a faint shimmer in the air, like heat waves on a summer day, surrounding a particular section of the forest. There, she pointed. Some kind of distortion. Good eye, Professor. Naruto looked impressed. Most people can't see the barrier without training. They touched down in a clearing about a half-mile from the distortion, the impact sending birds scattering from nearby trees. This is as close as I can get you, Gamakichi rumbled. The old barriers don't recognize me as friendly anymore, been too long. Naruto jumped down, helping Glynda and the others dismount. Thanks for the lift. I'll summon you when we're done. The giant toad saluted with his pipe before disappearing in another cloud of smoke. That is so never getting old, Yang declared, adjusting her gauntlets. Can you teach me to do that? Different power system, Naruto replied absently, already scanning the forest. This way. And stay close, the barrier will only let you through if you're with me. The group followed him through the dense undergrowth. RWBY and Yang took point, familiar with Patch's terrain, while Blake covered their rear flank. Weiss walked alongside Glynda, occasionally using her glyphs to clear particularly difficult sections. You've been unusually quiet, Ms. Schnee, Glynda observed. Weiss hesitated. Professor, does it concern you that we're following someone who claims to be a god, searching for ancient seals that nobody in modern scholarship has documented, all on the word of Headmaster Ojban who has been, less than forthcoming about other matters? Ahead of them, Naruto called back without turning, I can hear you, you know. And for the record, I never claimed to be a god. Other people came up with that label. You said you created RWBY's ancestors, Weiss countered. Created, influenced, guided the evolutionary process, semantics. He pushed aside a thick bush. When you've lived as long as I have, the line between helping something develop and creating it gets blurry. Glynda found herself surprisingly amused by the exchange. To answer your question, Ms. Schnee, yes, it concerns me. But I've seen enough to believe that Mr. Uzumaki, whatever his true nature, is indeed trying to help. They emerged from the thick forest into a small clearing dominated by crumbling stone structures. Ancient columns, half reclaimed by nature, surrounded what might once have been a central courtyard. "Here we are," Naruto announced, approaching the largest structure, a partially collapsed dome with strange symbols etched around its base. "Home sweet home, at least for a few centuries back in the day." RWBY ran her hand along one of the symbols, fascination evident in her expression. "These look like the markings on your skin." "Because they are," Naruto confirmed. "This was one of my first outposts when I came to this world." "And when exactly was that?" Blake asked. Naruto scratched his chin thoughtfully. "By your calendar? Maybe, 15,000 years ago. Give or take a millennium." The silence that followed was broken only by the distant calls of birds. 15,000 years, Weiss repeated flatly. "Yeah, I'm fuzzy on the exact date. Time flows differently when you hop between dimensions." Naruto knelt by the base of the dome, pressing his palm against a specific pattern. "Stand back a bit." The symbol beneath his hand began to glow with familiar golden light. Then, like a ripple in water, the illumination spread to adjacent markings until the entire structure was outlined in pulsing energy. "Open," Naruto commanded in that strange ancient language he'd used in the vault. The ground beneath them trembled. Slowly, the central stone of the courtyard slid aside, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. "Ladies first," Naruto offered with a grin. "I think the immortal seal god should take point," Glynda suggested dryly. Naruto shrugged. "Fair enough." He created a small sphere of swirling golden energy in his palm that illuminated their way. "Watch your step. And don't touch anything glowing unless I say it's okay." The staircase descended deeper than seemed possible, the air growing cool and surprisingly fresh. The walls were covered in intricate seal patterns that occasionally pulsed with faint light as they passed. "This place is incredible," Weiss whispered, academic curiosity overcoming her skepticism. "The engineering alone should be impossible for something this ancient." "Wait till you see the main chamber," Naruto replied. "It's where I prototyped the first dust crystals." "You invented dust?" RWBY squeaked. "More like refined it from the natural energy of this world. Needed something your ancestors could use to protect themselves after I left." They emerged into a vast underground chamber that defied the apparent dimensions of the ruins above. The ceiling soared at least 30 feet overhead, supported by columns inscribed with spiraling seal work. At the center stood what appeared to be a pedestal surrounding a floating crystal that pulsed with multicolored light. "The patch node," Naruto said, approaching the pedestal. "One of 6 anchor points for Remnant's dimensional stability." As he neared the crystal, his expression changed from satisfaction to concern. "That's not right." Glynda stepped forward. "What's wrong?" "It's been tampered with." Naruto circled the pedestal, examining the seal work with increasingly obvious alarm. "Recently. Someone with knowledge they shouldn't have has been here." Blake's hand moved to her weapon. "Salem?" "No. Different signature." Naruto placed both palms on the pedestal. "This is, older. And weirdly familiar." The crystal pulsed erratically, its light momentarily dimming before flaring brighter. Naruto jumped back just as a surge of energy arced from the crystal toward where he'd been standing. "Yeah, definitely tampered with," he muttered. "Defense systems are haywire." RWBY pointed to a section of the wall where the seal patterns were clearly damaged, scratched away as if by claws. "Could Grimm have done this?" "Not regular Grimm." Naruto moved to inspect the damage. "But there are older variants, ancients that existed before Salem's corruption. Some retained intelligence and purpose." Yang crossed her arms. "You're saying there are smart Grimm out there? Ones that Salem didn't, control?" "Remnants of an earlier age," Naruto confirmed. "Mostly dormant or hidden in remote regions. But someone or something has activated this one." He turned to face them, unusually serious. I need to repair and recalibrate this node before the damage spreads. It'll take concentration and time, probably a few hours. We'll secure the perimeter, Glynda decided immediately. Team RWBY, standard search formation, 30-meter radius from the entrance. Report any anomalies immediately, no matter how insignificant they seem. As the girls nodded and headed back toward the stairs, Glynda turned to Naruto. What can I do? He considered for a moment. Your semblance, telekinesis, right? That's perfect. I need those fallen seal fragments over there brought back to their original positions while I work. Think of it like a puzzle. Glynda nodded, moving toward the damaged section. And if whatever did this returns? Naruto's expression hardened. Then we have bigger problems than a degrading seal node. His hands formed a complex series of signs. Shadow clone technique. 2 perfect copies of Naruto appeared beside him. My clones will help you with the reconstruction while I work on the core. If anything attacks, well, they pack quite a punch on their own. For the next few hours, they worked in focused silence. Glynda found herself impressed by the precision of Naruto's clones as they guided her telekinesis, repositioning tiny fragments of seal work with microscopic accuracy. The real Naruto remained at the pedestal, sometimes chanting in that ancient language, other times simply holding positions with his hands forming strange signs. Occasionally, her scroll buzzed with status updates from Team RWBY, all clear, though RWBY reported unusual grim tracks near the northern perimeter. Almost done, Naruto announced eventually, sweat beading on his forehead. Just need to resynchronize them. A massive explosion rocked the chamber, sending dust and debris raining from the ceiling. Glynda immediately created a telekinetic shield over the seal work they'd repaired. Naruto's clones vanished as the original sprinted toward the stairs. That came from outside. Glynda's scroll was already in hand. Team RWBY, report. Blake's voice came through, punctuated by the sounds of combat. Multiple hostiles. Not just grim, White Fang forces with advanced weaponry. The connection cut off. They raced up the stairs to find the forest clearing transformed into a battlefield. Team RWBY fought against a mixture of White Fang soldiers and strange grim unlike any Glynda had seen before, more solid-looking, with glowing blue markings instead of the usual red, and moving with disturbing coordination. RWBY's scythe whirled in a deadly arc, cutting down 3 attackers before she spotted them. Professor. They came out of nowhere, some kind of portal. Naruto's eyes narrowed, scanning the battlefield. Those aren't regular Grim. They're ancients, primes from before the Brother God's modifications. A White Fanged lieutenant pointed toward them. There. The primary target and the beacon witch. Glynda immediately went on the offensive, telekinetically uprooting several trees and hurling them through the enemy ranks. Mr. Uzumaki, is the seal secure? Not yet. Need another 10 minutes to complete the reactivation. Naruto formed a familiar crossed sign with his fingers. Shadow clone technique. This time, instead of 2 copies, at least 30 identical Narutos appeared, immediately charging into battle alongside Team RWBY. Show off, Glynda muttered, but couldn't deny the effectiveness as the clones tore through the White Fang forces. A particularly large ancient Grim, something like a Beowulf but twice the size and covered in bone plates, charged directly at Naruto. Before Glynda could intervene, Naruto extended his hand. A spiraling sphere of energy formed in his palm. Rasengan. The sphere slammed into the creature with devastating force, not just killing it but seemingly erasing it from existence entirely. Cool, RWBY breathed from nearby, momentarily distracted before returning to her own battle. The fight intensified as more White Fang emerged from the tree line, accompanied by those strange ancient Grim. Glynda found herself back-to-back with Weiss, deflecting bullets while the heiress conjured ice walls and glyphs. Their tactics are too coordinated for a typical White Fang operation, Weiss observed, summoning a row of glyphs that launched ice shards into the enemy ranks. Someone with strategic experience is directing them, Glynda agreed, using her telekinesis to gather fallen weapons and redirect them at their former owners. Across the clearing, Yang punched through the chest plate of an ancient Ursa, her eyes burning red. Whoever they are, they picked the wrong ruins to raid. Blake appeared beside her, shadow cloning past a barrage of gunfire. Yang, on your left. As the battle raged, Naruto fought his way back toward the entrance to the underground chamber. Need to finish the seal activation. Cover me. Glynda nodded, creating the largest telekinetic barrier she could manage around the entrance while Naruto disappeared below. The moment he was gone, the attacks intensified. Clearly, he had been the primary target all along. A new wave of enemies emerged from the forest, led by a figure that made Glynda's blood run cold. Adam Taurus. The white-fanged leader's masked face turned toward Blake, his smile predatory. Hello, my darling. Interesting company you're keeping these days. Blake's ears flattened beneath her bow. Adam. Yang stepped protectively in front of her partner. You're not touching her. Adam's hand moved to his sword. This doesn't concern you, human. Actually, came a new voice, cold and commanding, none of this concerns any of you anymore. All combatants turned toward the new arrival, a figure emerging from what appeared to be a tear in the air itself. Salem, still in her partially transformed state from Naruto's intervention, stepped into the clearing. Though no longer corrupted by the darkness as before, she remained an imposing presence, pale, red-eyed, and radiating power. Queen Salem, Adam acknowledged, clearly surprised. This wasn't the plan, plans change, Salem interrupted, her gaze sweeping the battlefield before fixing on Glynda. Where is he? Before Glynda could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. Golden light erupted from the entrance to the underground chamber, shooting skyward in a pillar that momentarily blinded everyone present. When the light faded, Naruto stood at the entrance, his body covered in glowing seal patterns more complex than before. Looking for me? He asked, casually dusting off his hands. Gotta say, Salem, working with the White Fang isn't really your style. Bit desperate, don't you think? Salem's eyes narrowed. A temporary alliance of convenience. They seek the power hidden in your seal sights, and I have my own reasons for finding you. Yeah, about that power they're seeking, Naruto gestured toward the pillar of light now stabilized above the ruins. Just reactivated the full defense systems. So unless your new friends want to become one with the seal matrix at a molecular level, I suggest they back off. As if to emphasize his point, one of the White Fang soldiers who stepped too close to the light cried out as golden energy arced toward him. He dropped his weapon and fled, smoke rising from his uniform. Adam looked between Salem and Naruto, clearly recalculating his position. With a sharp gesture to his forces, he backed away. This operation is compromised. Withdraw. Salem made no move to stop the White Fang's retreat. Cowards. But perhaps wise. As the White Fang disappeared into the forest, taking the strange ancient Grim with them, Team RWBY regrouped around Glynda, weapons still ready. Should we pursue? RWBY asked. No, Glynda decided. Securing this site is our priority. She turned to Naruto. The seal node? Fully operational and upgraded, he confirmed. Won't be so easy to tamper with next time. His attention shifted to Salem, who remained standing calmly at the edge of the clearing. So, ready to talk like civilized cosmic entities, or are we doing the whole mysterious threats and cryptic warnings thing? A ghost of a smile touched Salem's lips. You haven't changed, have you? Still approaching the fate of worlds with quips and casualness. Hey, when you've seen as many apocalypses as I have, you develop a sense of humor about it. Naruto stepped forward, positioning himself between Salem and the others. Why don't you tell me what you're really after, Salem? Because we both know it's not these seal nodes. Not directly, Anyway. Salem studied him for a long moment. You truly don't remember, do you? Naruto frowned. Remember what? Our first meeting. Salem's eyes held something almost like disappointment. Long before the brother gods, before my curse, before Ozma. When you first came to this world and I was, something else entirely. For the first time since they'd met him, Glynda saw genuine confusion cross Naruto's face. That's impossible. When I arrived on Remnant, it was uninhabited except for primitive life forms. The only sentient beings I encountered were the brother gods when they showed up later. Salem's laugh held no humor. Of course. They would have made sure you forgot. Her gaze shifted to encompass the group. Ask yourself why the divine sage, master of memory and binding seals, has gaps in his own recollection. Ask yourself what power could affect a god's memories. Naruto's eyes narrowed dangerously. If you know something, say it plainly. And spoil the moment when you discover the truth yourself. No. Salem turned as if to leave, then paused. The site in Vacuo. That's where you'll find the first key to what was taken from you. From both of us. With that cryptic statement, she gestured, creating another tear in reality, and stepped through. The portal closed behind her, leaving them in sudden, heavy silence. Well, Young finally said, that was cryptic as hell. Glynda looked to Naruto, who stood staring at where Salem had disappeared, his expression troubled. Mr. Uzumaki. He shook himself, the familiar easy grin returning though it didn't quite reach his eyes. Just Naruto, please. Mr. Uzumaki makes me sound like somebody's accountant. Naruto, Glynda amended. Was there any truth to what she said? He ran a hand through his spiky blonde hair. I don't know. My memories of my earliest time on Remnant are, weirdly fuzzy for someone who's supposed to be good at memory seals. His eyes met hers. But that's a problem for later. Right now, we need to secure the remaining nodes before whoever is coordinating these attacks makes another move. RWBY stepped forward, determination etched on her young face. So we're headed to Vacuo next. Looks that way, Silver Eyes, Naruto confirmed. And something tells me Salem will be waiting for us. Blake, who had been unusually quiet since Adam's appearance, finally spoke. The White Fang working with Ancient Grimm, that's not just Adam's doing. Someone else is influencing them, someone with knowledge of these places. Agreed, Glynda said. This level of coordination suggests a third party we haven't identified yet. Naruto looked toward the horizon, where the sun was beginning to set. Let's make camp here tonight. The activated seal will keep this area secure. Tomorrow, we head for Vacuo. He glanced at Glynda. Hope you packed sunscreen, Professor. It's gonna be hot. I came prepared, she replied dryly, though part of her wondered if anyone could truly be prepared for whatever secrets awaited them in the Desert Kingdom. The campfire cast dancing shadows across the ancient ruins as Team RWBY settled in for the night. Glynda had established a watch rotation, though Naruto assured them the reactivated seal would warn of any intrusion. Unable to sleep, Glynda found herself wandering the perimeter, mind racing with questions about Salem's cryptic statements. She found Naruto sitting atop one of the fallen columns, staring up at the shattered moon. Shouldn't you be resting? She asked, approaching quietly. He smiled without looking down. Don't need much sleep these days. Perk of the whole semi-divine thing. Mind some company? He patted the space beside him, and she used her telekinesis to lift herself gracefully onto the column. For a while, they sat in surprisingly comfortable silence, watching Remnant's broken moon drift across the star-filled sky. You know, Naruto finally said, I've seen that moon hole. Glynda turned to him. You were here when it happened? Yeah. Nasty business with the brother gods throwing a tantrum. They were young gods, relatively speaking, powerful but immature. Like giving cosmic powers to teenagers. That's a terrifying thought. Naruto chuckled. Tell me about it. I've cleaned up after quite a few divine temper tantrums across the multiverse. Glynda studied his profile in the moonlight. Despite his casual demeanor, something about Salem's words had clearly disturbed him. Do you think Salem was telling the truth? About your memories? Naruto sighed, the sound strangely human for a being of his claimed age and power. There are gaps. Things I should remember but don't. The transition between dimensions can mess with perception, but not like this. He tapped his temple. Something's not right in here, and it's been bugging me since I arrived. Could the brother gods have altered your memories somehow? They shouldn't have been able to. That's what worries me. His eyes met hers, suddenly serious. Whatever power could affect my mind would be significant. And potentially very dangerous for this world. A cool breeze rustled through the clearing, carrying the scent of pine and distant ocean. There's something else, Glynda ventured. Something about the way Salem spoke to you. It seemed personal. Naruto nodded slowly. Yeah, I caught that too. Like she knows me better than she should. He frowned. The way she said, what was taken from both of us, that implies a connection I have no memory of. Could she be lying? Manipulating you? Could be. She's good at that. He stretched, the seal patterns on his skin glowing faintly in the darkness. But my gut says there's more to it. And after a few thousand years, I've learned to trust my gut. Glynda found herself smiling slightly. For an ancient divine being, you're remarkably human. I was human once, he replied softly. A long, long time ago. At least, I'm pretty sure I was. He grinned suddenly. Or I could be a sentient ramen bowl that achieved enlightenment. Memory gaps, remember? Despite herself, Glynda laughed, a sound she realized she hadn't made in quite some time. A divine noodle dish. That would explain your cafeteria habits. See? It all makes sense. His smile faded into something more thoughtful. What about you, Professor? What's your story? The question caught her off guard. My story is hardly comparable to that of a primordial entity. Maybe not in length, but I bet it's just as interesting in its way. His eyes were kind, genuinely curious. Why teaching? Why Beacon? Glynda considered deflecting but found herself answering honestly. I wanted to make a difference. As a huntress in the field, I could save lives one mission at a time. At Beacon, I helped shape the defenders of tomorrow. She adjusted her glasses. And Ojban offered a chance to be part of something larger, addressing the root causes of Remnant's problems, not just the symptoms. Fighting Salem. Yes, though I didn't know the full scope initially. She looked down at her hands. Sometimes I wonder if we've made any real progress or if we've just been maintaining a stalemate. Stalemates aren't always bad, Naruto observed. They buy time. And sometimes time is what you need for the right solution to emerge. Is that what you are? The right solution that time has brought us? Naruto laughed. Me? Nah. I'm more like the cosmic maintenance guy who finally got the work order after too many delays. His expression softened. But maybe together, we can find a better answer than endless conflict. A comfortable silence fell between them. Glynda found herself studying his profile again, youthful in appearance but with eyes that had clearly seen centuries pass. We should rest, she finally said. Vacuo will be challenging even with adequate sleep. Naruto nodded, jumping down from the column with inhuman grace. You go ahead. I'll keep watch for a while. As Glynda prepared to lower herself down, he looked up at her with an unexpectedly vulnerable expression. Hey, Glynda. Thanks. For what? Not treating me like either a weapon to be wielded or a god to be feared. It's nice to just talk sometimes. Something warm and unexpected bloomed in her chest. You're welcome. Naruto. As she made her way back to camp, Glynda realized with mild surprise that she was looking forward to whatever adventures awaited them in Vacuo, ancient threats, memory mysteries, and all. The Vacuo desert stretched endlessly beneath the bullhead, shimmering with heat despite the early hour. They'd left Gamakichi behind. The giant toad had flatly refused to hop across that oversized sandbox, as he put it. There, Naruto pointed through the view screen. That mesa formation. The seal site is underneath. Glynda adjusted their course, grateful for the aircraft's climate control as external temperature readings climbed past 110 degrees. Any idea what we're walking into? Based on the patch site. Trouble. Naruto had been unusually quiet during the flight, meditating for most of the journey. But the Vacuo node is different, it's the oldest of the 6, from my very first visit to Remnant. RWBY peered over his shoulder. Does that mean it might have clues about your missing memories? Maybe. He didn't sound convinced. But something else is bothering me. The White Fang shouldn't know about these sites, let alone how to find them. Adam always had outside contacts, Blake offered from her seat. People who provided the White Fang with information and technology beyond their means. And now they have Salem, Weiss added. Naruto shook his head. Salem's not directing them. She's pursuing her own agenda. This is someone else, someone with ancient knowledge. The bullhead touched down on a flat area atop the mesa, heat immediately blasting them as the doors opened. The team disembarked quickly, shielding their eyes against the glare. Lovely vacation spot, Yang commented, activating her sunglasses function. Really sells the whole, barren wasteland, vibe. Glynda scanned their surroundings, noting unusual rock formations that seemed too regular to be natural. These were structures once. Oldest human settlement on Remnant, Naruto confirmed, running his hand along a weathered stone pillar. Before the brother gods brought their version of humanity, I guided the evolution of proto-humans here. They built a civilization that lasted nearly 2,000 years. What happened to them? RWBY asked. A shadow crossed Naruto's face. I don't remember exactly. There was a conflict of some kind. The record should be in the seal chamber. He approached what appeared to be a solid rock face, pressing his palm against it. If I can just, a bullet ricocheted off the stone inches from his hand. Ambush. Blake called, Gamble's shroud already drawn. Figures appeared along the mesa's rim, White Fang operatives taking up sniper positions. From behind nearby rocks, more fighters emerged, accompanied by those same strange ancient Grimm they'd encountered in Patch. They were waiting for us, Weiss realized, rapier at ready as she created a protective glyph. Naruto didn't look surprised. Yeah, figured as much. He created a shadow clone beside him. Plan B. You guys handle the welcome party, I'll get that door open. Without waiting for a response, he turned back to the rock face, hands forming rapid signs while his clone joined the developing battle. Team RWBY moved immediately into defensive formation around Naruto and Glynda, countering the initial assault. RWBY's scythe cut down White Fang soldiers who ventured too close, while Yang focused on the ancient Grimm, her gauntlet sending explosive shots into their ranks. Glynda used her telekinesis to redirect enemy fire back at the snipers, creating cover by lifting massive slabs of stone. Whatever you're doing, Mr. Uzumaki, I suggest you hurry. Working on it. Naruto called back, the stone beneath his hands beginning to glow with familiar golden patterns. This seal's been dormant longer than the others. It's resistant. A particularly large ancient, something resembling a Goliath but with 6 legs and crystalline growths protruding from its body, crashed through their defensive perimeter. Blake narrowly dodged its charge, leaving behind a shadow clone that exploded on contact. These ancients are smarter than regular Grimm, she warned, rejoining Weiss. They're coordinating with the White Fang tactics. Weiss spun through a series of glyphs, launching precision ice strikes. They're herding us away from the cliff face, away from Naruto. Not happening. Young shouted, eyes blazing red as she intercepted another ancient, her fist connecting with earth-shaking force. Nobody gets past us. The battle intensified as more ancients emerged from hidden locations around the mesa. Unlike the mindless aggression of modern Grimm, these creatures moved with disturbing intelligence, testing defenses and retreating when countered. Behind them, Naruto's efforts finally bore fruit. The solid rock face shimmered and then simply vanished, revealing a dark passage descending into the mesa. Got it, he called. Everyone inside, now. Glynda coordinated the fighting retreat, Team RWBY moving backward in practiced unison as Naruto's clone provided covering fire with what appeared to be energy projectiles launched from his palm. As they reached the entrance, a new figure appeared at the edge of the battlefield, a man in elaborate robes with a mask that covered the upper half of his face. Even from a distance, Glynda could see the seal-like markings decorating his exposed skin, similar to Naruto's but darker, corrupted somehow. Naruto Uzumaki, the figure called, his voice carrying unnaturally across the battlefield. The divine sage returns at last. Naruto froze, staring at the newcomer. Who are you? Those markings. You don't recognize your own handiwork. The figure spread his arms. Your first attempt at creating guardians for this world. Before your precious silver-eyed warriors. RWBY glanced between Naruto and the stranger, confusion evident. That's impossible, Naruto said, though uncertainty tinged his voice. Those prototypes didn't, they shouldn't have, survived. The man laughed coldly. We did more than survive, Creator. We evolved. And now, we've come to reclaim what was promised to us. Glynda grabbed Naruto's arm. We need to get inside. Now. The stranger gestured, and the ancients and White Fang forces renewed their attack with increased ferocity. Naruto's expression hardened. Get everyone inside. I'll deal with this. Naruto, go. Golden energy flared around him as he stepped forward to face the attacker. Glynda ushered Team RWBY into the passage, looking back just in time to see Naruto and the mysterious figure clash in an explosion of opposing energies, gold against a corrupted purple-black. The last thing she saw before the entrance sealed itself behind them was Naruto being thrown backward by a blast that should have been impossible for anyone but another god to produce. The passage descended steeply into darkness, illuminated only by Weiss's glyphs and the emergency lights on their scrolls. The sounds of battle above faded, replaced by an oppressive silence. We can't just leave him up there. RWBY protested, trying to turn back. Mr. Uzumaki can handle himself, Glynda stated with more confidence than she felt. Our priority is securing the seal node. But that guy, Young argued, he had powers like Naruto's. And those markings, I know. Glynda's mind raced with implications. Which is why we need to find answers before jumping back into a fight we don't understand. Blake had taken point, her enhanced vision guiding them through the darkened passage. Professor, the tunnel opens up ahead. And there's light. They emerged into a vast underground chamber that defied the apparent dimensions of the mesa above. Unlike the patch site, this one showed no signs of damage or tampering. Instead, it was immaculately preserved, as if sealed away from time itself. At its center stood not a crystal, but a massive tree with luminescent bark inscribed with seal patterns. Its branches extended throughout the chamber, seeming to merge with the ceiling and walls. It's beautiful, Weiss whispered. RWBY approached cautiously. Is this the seal node? It must be, Glynda replied, studying the tree with professional interest. Though it's quite different from what we saw in Patch. Blake had moved to examine a series of panels on one wall, stone tablets covered in both familiar seal patterns and what appeared to be an ancient form of writing. There are records here. Some kind of history. Young joined her, running her fingers over the inscriptions. Can anyone read this? I can try, Glynda offered, adjusting her glasses as she examined the panels. Her extensive knowledge of ancient languages might prove useful, though this script predated anything in Remnant's known history. As they investigated the chamber, the ground suddenly trembled. Dust and small debris rained from the ceiling. "That can't be good," RWBY said, looking up nervously. Another, stronger tremor shook the chamber. This time, cracks appeared along one wall. "Something's coming through," Weiss warned, rapier raised. The wall exploded inward. Through the dust and debris stepped Naruto, clothes torn and bloodied but standing tall. Behind him, the mysterious masked figure followed, looking equally battle-worn. "Sorry for the dramatic entrance," Naruto called, wiping blood from his chin. "Kinda had to improvise." The stranger surveyed the chamber, his expression unreadable behind his mask. "The World Tree Chamber. After all these millennia, it still stands." Glynda and Team RWBY formed a defensive line between the intruder and the central tree. "Who are you?" Glynda demanded. The man ignored her, his attention fixed on Naruto. "You still don't remember, do you? Even standing here, where it all began?" Naruto's eyes narrowed. "Why don't you help me out? Starting with who the hell you are and how you have access to sealing techniques that only I should know." The stranger reached up, removing his mask to reveal a face that caused Naruto to physically stagger backward. Though not identical, the resemblance was unmistakable, the same jawline, similar facial structure, even the same whisker-like markings on his cheeks, though his were darker, more pronounced. "My name is Ashura," the man said. "And I am what remains of your first attempt to create a legacy on this world." The chamber fell silent as the implications of his words sank in. "That's impossible," Naruto finally said. "Ashura was a concept, not a person, an energy construct I created to help maintain the early seals. It wasn't sentient." "I became sentient," Ashura corrected. "As did my siblings. We evolved beyond our programming, developed consciousness, desires." His eyes hardened. "And we remembered being abandoned when you moved on to your precious humans." Glynda stepped forward. "What do you want with the seal nodes?" Ashura finally acknowledged her presence. "Control. These nodes don't just stabilize reality, they define it. With all 6 under our direction, we can reshape Remnant as it should have been. A world where we, the first children, rule instead of these, flawed humans." "That would destroy the current reality," Naruto said. "Billions would die. A necessary transition." Ashura turned back to the tree. "And it begins here, where life on Remnant was first seeded." He moved with blinding speed toward the tree, hands forming seal signs Glynda recognized from watching Naruto. "Stop him!" Naruto shouted, launching himself forward. Team RWBY reacted instantly. RWBY's semblance carried her directly into Ashura's path, crescent rows extended. He barely avoided the scythe's blade, forced to abort his approach to the tree. "Children fighting for a corrupted world," Ashura sneered. "How appropriate." Yang didn't waste time with words, launching a barrage of explosive shots that Ashura deflected with a barrier reminiscent of Naruto's techniques. The chamber became a battlefield as RWBY engaged Ashura while Naruto raced to the World Tree. Glynda used her telekinesis to support the team, redirecting debris and creating openings for their attacks. "He's as fast as Naruto," Blake called, her shadow clones barely keeping pace with Ashura's movements. Weiss created a time dilation glyph beneath RWBY, accelerating her semblance to nearly untraceable speed. The young huntress became a red blur, her scythe connecting solidly with Ashura's shoulder. For the first time, the entity showed pain, black energy seeping from the wound instead of blood. "Silver eyes," he hissed at RWBY. His second attempt at Guardians. "How does it feel to be the upgraded model?" RWBY didn't falter. "I don't know what you're talking about, but you're not touching that tree." At the World Tree, Naruto had placed both hands on the trunk, golden energy flowing between his body and the luminescent bark. "The seal array is intact, but dormant. I need time to reactivate it." Ashura laughed, the sound echoing unnaturally. Time is precisely what you don't have, creator. He formed a complex seal sign, then slammed his palm to the ground. Summoning, Prime Behemoth. The chamber shook violently as a massive portal opened in the floor. Through it emerged the largest ancient Glynda had ever seen, a chimeric beast with multiple heads, each resembling a different grim type, its body covered in the same corrupted seal markings as Ashura. Keep him busy. Glynda called to Team RWBY, moving to assist Naruto at the tree. What do you need? Concentrate your semblance on stabilizing the chamber, Naruto instructed, not breaking his connection with the tree. This place was designed to amplify sealing energy. When I reactivate it, the backlash could bring the whole mesa down on us. The behemoth roared, each head emitting a different elemental attack, fire, ice, lightning, and what appeared to be pure gravity distortion. Team RWBY scattered, using the chamber's columns for cover. Ashura used the distraction to move toward the tree again, only to be intercepted by Blake, who appeared from a shadow directly in his path. You're persistent, he acknowledged, forming energy claws around his hands. You have no idea, Blake replied, creating multiple shadow clones that attacked from all directions. Weiss coordinated with Yang, using glyphs to launch the brawler like a missile into one of the behemoth's heads. The impact shattered bone plates, revealing vulnerable flesh beneath that RWBY immediately targeted with her scythe. The battle reached a fevered intensity as Naruto's connection with the tree strengthened. The entire chamber began to glow with golden light, seal patterns appearing on the walls, floor, and ceiling. Almost there, Naruto called, sweat pouring down his face from the effort. Just need to, enough games, Ashura snarled, disengaging from Blake. He performed a series of rapid seal signs before slamming both palms together. Primordial technique, reality anchor severance. Black energy erupted from his hands, shooting toward the tree in a concentrated beam. Naruto saw it coming but couldn't break his connection without losing the reactivation progress. No! Glynda shouted, instinctively throwing herself into the beam's path. Time seemed to slow. Glynda felt the corrupted energy strike her barrier, her semblance straining beyond anything she'd ever attempted. For a moment, she thought she'd succeeded in blocking it, then pain exploded through her body as the barrier shattered. She heard Naruto scream her name as she collapsed. Through blurring vision, she saw him abandon the tree, catching her before she hit the ground. Glynda! Hold on, just hold on, his voice sounded distant, panicked. Ashura laughed triumphantly, redirecting his attack toward the now unprotected tree. Too late, creator. What happened next occurred so quickly that later, none of them could agree on the exact sequence of events. RWBY, seeing Glynda fall and the tree threatened, activated something none of them had seen before. Her silver eyes blazed with pure white light that filled the chamber, freezing both the behemoth and Ashura mid-attack. In that moment of opportunity, Naruto, still cradling Glynda, formed a one-handed seal sign. The tree responded instantly, branches extending outward like striking serpents to ensnare Ashura. That's impossible, Ashura gasped as the luminescent wood wrapped around his limbs. You can't control the world tree without the full activation sequence. Unless I designed it that way, Naruto replied, his voice deadly calm. Emergency protocols keyed to my specific energy signature. Something you'd know if you were really what you claim to be. Fear flashed across Ashura's face. You remember? Enough to know you're not Ashura. Naruto gently laid Glynda down, then approached the restrained figure. Ashura was my friend, not my creation. And he died protecting this world from the very corruption you're channeling. He placed his palm on Ashura's forehead. Now let's see who you really are. Golden light flowed from Naruto's hand into the struggling entity. As it did, Ashura's features began to change, the resemblance to Naruto fading, replaced by a more angular face with eyes that glowed an unnatural purple. Interesting disguise, Naruto said grimly. But your energy signature can't lie to me. You're one of the brother gods' experiments gone wrong, a failed attempt to replicate my sealing powers. The revealed entity snarled. We were meant to replace you. To be the new guardians of Remnant. And that worked out great, clearly. Naruto stepped back. The world tree will contain you until I figure out what to do with you permanently. The entity laughed despite its predicament. You've won nothing, divine sage. There are more of us, awakening across Remnant. Salem has already found the third node, and your precious silver-eyed warrior can't be everywhere at once. RWBY, recovering from the exertion of her eye power, approached cautiously. What does he mean about my eyes? About being an upgraded model? Naruto's expression softened. It's complicated, RWBY. And not how he makes it sound. He turned back to the entity. The silver eyes were never weapons or tools, they were gifts. Protection for a world I couldn't stay to defend personally. A groan from Glynda drew his attention immediately. He rushed to her side, hands glowing with healing energy as he assessed her injuries. The corruption spreading through her aura, he said, concern evident. I need to get her to the heart of the world tree's power. It's the only thing strong enough to purge this type of energy. Yang moved to help lift Glynda. What about him? She nodded toward the captured entity. The tree will hold him. Naruto carefully took Glynda in his arms. Blake, check those wall records. There should be information about the other nodes, specifically where the next one is located. Blake nodded, returning to the inscribed panels with Weiss. RWBY, Naruto continued, I need you near the tree. Your silver eyes resonated with its energy in a way I haven't seen before. It might help stabilize the healing process. RWBY followed without question as Naruto carried Glynda to the base of the massive tree. He placed her gently against the trunk, where the bark seemed to shift and cradle her form. What happened? Glynda managed, her voice weak. You took a hit meant for the tree, Naruto explained, forming intricate seal signs above her body. Pretty brave and extremely reckless. Despite her pain, Glynda managed a weak smile. Learned from, watching you. Fair point. Golden light flowed from his hands into her chest, following the path of the corruption. This is going to feel weird, but try to relax. RWBY stood nearby, uncertain. What do I do? Focus on Glynda, Naruto instructed. Think about protecting her, healing her. Your eyes respond to your emotions and intentions. The young huntress nodded, concentrating. Slowly, a silver glow appeared around her eyes, not the blinding flash from before, but a steady, gentle radiance. As the silver light touched Glynda, the black corruption in her veins began to recede, replaced by healthy color. Naruto worked in concert with RWBY's power, his seals directing and amplifying its effect. It's working, he said after several tense minutes. The corruption is being neutralized. Across the chamber, Blake called out, Naruto. I found something about the other nodes. There's a map encoded in these symbols. Copy it all, he replied without looking up from his work. Every detail. Weiss joined her, scroll in hand. These records mention a great betrayal during the time of first seeding. Does that mean anything to you? Naruto's hands faltered momentarily. It sounds familiar. Like something I should know but can't quite reach. He shook his head, refocusing on Glynda. One mystery at a time. The healing process continued for nearly an hour, the golden energy gradually restoring Glynda's aura. When it finally completed, Naruto sat back, clearly exhausted. Thank you, Glynda said, her strength returning. Both of you. RWBY smiled, the silver glow fading from her eyes. I didn't even know I could do that. It was different from freezing grim. That's because you weren't attacking, Naruto explained. The silver eyes have always had dual aspects, the power to destroy corruption and the power to heal what belongs to this world. A groan from their prisoner interrupted the moment. The entity struggled against its wooden restraints, which tightened in response. What do we do with him? Yang asked. Naruto stood, approaching the captured being. First, we get some answers. He placed his hand on the entity's forehead again. Who sent you? Who organized the White Fang to target these sites? The entity resisted, then gasped in pain as the tree's branches constricted further. The Harbinger. She who was first before the brothers. She who remembers what you forgot. Name, Naruto demanded. She has many. The first humans called her Kaguya. Naruto froze, the color draining from his face. What did you say? The entity smiled, seeing the effect the name had. You do remember something after all. Kaguya, Naruto repeated, the name triggering fragments of memory, a woman with pale skin and strange eyes, a massive conflict, a sealing jutsu unlike any he'd used since. That's impossible. Yet she walks this world again, the entity taunted. Awakened when you repaired the central node. Your meddling broke the final seal that contained her. Glynda, now recovered enough to stand, moved to Naruto's side. Who is Kaguya? Naruto's expression was haunted. I don't remember clearly. But the name, it feels significant. Dangerous. He turned to Blake and Weiss. What else do those records say? Anything about a Kaguya or a Harbinger? Blake scrolled through the images she'd captured. There's a section about a progenitor of chakra, who came before even you. It says she was sealed away after attempting to merge with the world tree. Chakra, Naruto murmured, the term resonating deeply. Yes, that's the original name for what powers my seals. The entity laughed. Your memory returns too late, divine sage. She's already moved against the Mistral node. And once she has 3 of the 6, she can begin the infinite Tsukimi. The what? Yang demanded. The end of your world, the entity replied simply. And the beginning of hers. Naruto's eyes hardened with sudden clarity. Team RWBY, gather everything you found. We're leaving immediately for Mistral. He turned to the world tree. I need to finish the reactivation sequence before we go. It'll take just a few minutes now that the connection is established. What about him? RWBY pointed to their prisoner. The tree will absorb and purify his corrupted energy, Naruto explained. It's not destruction, more like recycling. The entity thrashed against its restraints. You cannot stop what's coming. Kaguya was your equal once, perhaps your superior. And now she has Salem as her ally. Naruto paused at that. Salem is working with Kaguya. Willingly. They share a common goal, the entity sneered. Your destruction. We'll see about that, Naruto muttered, returning to the tree trunk. He pressed both palms against it, resuming the activation sequence. This time, the process completed smoothly. Golden light suffused the entire chamber, and the tree's glow intensified until it was almost painful to look at directly. The seal patterns across the walls, floor, and ceiling became permanent, etched into the very stone. It's done, Naruto announced, stepping back. This node is fully active and secured. As if in response, the tree's branches tightened around the entity, who screamed as its body began to dissolve into particles of light that the tree absorbed. What did he mean about Salem being Kaguya's ally? Glynda asked as they gathered their equipment. Naruto frowned. I'm not sure. From what I remember of Salem, which is admittedly fuzzy, alliance isn't really her style. She's too independent. He glanced at the spot where the entity had been. But if this Kaguya is who I'm starting to think she is, Salem might not have had much choice. Blake finished copying the last of the wall inscriptions. There's something else here, about the silver eyes specifically. It says they were created as a counter to the progenitor's visual power. RWBY touched the skin beneath her eyes. So my eyes were made to fight this Kaguya person. Not to fight her directly, Naruto clarified, understanding dawning. To resist the infinite Tsukimi, whatever that is. It's coming back in pieces, but I think it has something to do with the moon. They all instinctively looked upward, though the moon was hidden by tons of rock above them. Remnants shattered moon, Weiss mused. Could that be connected? Maybe. Naruto led them toward a different passage than the one they'd entered through. This will take us back to the surface on the far side of the mesa. With luck, we can avoid any remaining White Fang forces. As they ascended through the new passage, Glynda found herself watching Naruto closely. The confident, almost carefree demeanor he typically projected had been replaced by something more troubled, more vulnerable. "You're remembering more," she observed quietly, falling into step beside him. He nodded. "Fragments. Nothing coherent yet, but enough to know we're facing something far more dangerous than I initially thought." His eyes met hers. "Are you okay?" That corruption energy was no joke. "I felt better," she admitted. "But I'll manage." Naruto's hand briefly touched hers, a gesture so quick she might have imagined it. "Don't scare me like that again, okay? Watching you take that hit was..." He didn't finish the sentence. Before Glynda could respond, RWBY called from ahead, "I see daylight." They emerged onto the opposite side of the mesa, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the desert. The bullhead was nowhere in sight, likely still at their original landing zone where the White Fang had ambushed them. "Great," Yang sighed. "Stranded in the desert. Any chance your toad friend changed his mind about sand?" Naruto grinned, some of his usual humor returning. "Nope, but I've got another friend who loves deserts." He bit his thumb again, repeating the summoning technique. This time, the smoke cleared to reveal what could only be described as a giant tanuki, a raccoon dog creature with sand-colored fur and strange blue markings. "Naruto," the creature boomed. "About time you called. The desert's been boring without you." "Shikaku," Naruto greeted warmly. "Sorry for the wait. Been a little, memory-challenged lately." The tanuki peered at the assembled group with curious eyes. "New friends? They look squishy. And they need a ride to Mistral, fast." Shikaku huffed, creating a small sandstorm around his feet. "Always work with you." "Fine, everyone climb on. But no complaining about the sand, it gets everywhere." As they settled onto the creature's broad back, Glynda found herself next to Naruto again. "You have interesting friends," she commented. "You haven't seen anything yet," he replied with a wink. "Wait till you meet Kurama." Shikaku launched into a run across the desert, his massive paws kicking up sandstorms in their wake. Ahead lay Mistral, and if their prisoners' claims were true, another ancient enemy awaiting their arrival. Glynda studied Naruto's profile against the setting sun, wondering just how many more secrets from his past remained locked away, and what it would mean for all of them when those memories fully returned. Chapter 3, Rewriting Destiny. Shikaku's massive paws pounded across the mountains separating Vacuo from Mistral, sending cascades of rocks tumbling down slopes with each thundering step. Naruto stood on the giant tanuki's head, eyes closed as he extended his senses forward. "We're too late," he announced suddenly, opening eyes that flashed between blue and crimson. "The Mistral node's already under attack." Glynda steadied herself against Shikaku's fur as they crested another peak. "How can you tell from this distance?" "The seal network's connected. When one node gets messed with, I feel it." Naruto knelt, placing his palm directly on Shikaku's head. "Buddy, we need to move faster." The tanuki's rumbling laugh vibrated through everyone. "Faster? Now you're speaking my language." Sand swirled around them as Shikaku accelerated, his form partially dissolving into a racing sandstorm that carried them forward at impossible speed. "Everyone hang on!" Yang shouted, grabbing RWBY with one hand and a fistful of sandy fur with the other. Blake and Weiss created an impromptu harness system using Gamble Shroud's ribbon, securing themselves and the Good Witch to their mount. The landscape blurred around them as Shikaku pushed his abilities to their limit. "The Mistral node," Naruto called over the roaring wind, it's different from the others. Built into a massive tree at the heart of the oldest forest in Anima. Haven Academy was built near an ancient forest, Glynda replied. Their founders claimed the trees predated human civilization. They weren't wrong. Naruto's expression hardened. If Kagaya's really there, we're in for one hell of a fight. She's not like Salem or the brothers. RWBY edged closer, silver eyes determined despite the breakneck pace. What exactly are we facing? A goddess from my world, Naruto replied, fragmented memories continuing to surface. The original source of chakra, what you'd call aura, more or less. She came to Remnant before me, seeking something. And you sealed her away, Blake surmised. I think so. Frustration flashed across his face. The memories are coming back in pieces. I remember a massive battle, working with someone else to seal her. But who? Shikaku's voice boomed beneath them. Coming up on Mistral territory. And something's definitely wrong, the air tastes like her. The sandstorm slowed enough for them to make out the landscape ahead. Mistral's famous tiered cities climbed the mountainsides in the distance, but their attention was drawn to the unnatural darkness spreading through the ancient forest at the region's heart. Trees withered as they watched, a wave of decay radiating outward from a central point. The sky above that spot distorted, reality itself seeming to bend and warp. That's not good, Yang understated. Shikaku, get us as close as you can. Naruto ordered. Without getting caught in whatever that is. No problem. The Sand Tanuki changed course, circling the perimeter of the spreading darkness. As they approached, details emerged through the distortion. At the forest center stood an enormous tree unlike any on Remnant, easily rivaling the highest buildings of Atlas in height, its trunk wider than most houses. But the magnificent tree was changing before their eyes, twisted branches reaching skyward as glowing fruit-like objects formed among the highest limbs. The divine tree, Naruto whispered, recognition dawning. She's awakening it. What does that mean? Weiss asked. Nothing good. Naruto pointed to movement at the tree's base. Look. Even from a distance, they could make out figures gathered around the massive trunk. White Fang members formed the outer perimeter, but at the center stood three distinct forms, Adam Taurus, Salem in her partially transformed state, and a third figure that radiated such power that even Shikaku hesitated to approach closer. Kagaya, Naruto confirmed grimly. And she's already begun the transformation. Shikaku skidded to a stop at the edge of the dying forest, far enough from the distortion to remain safe but close enough to observe. What's the plan? RWBY asked, crescent rose already in hand as they dismounted. Naruto's eyes never left the distant scene. Salem's not fully aligned with Kagaya, look at her body language. She's being coerced. He turned to Glynda. We need intel before charging in. Can your team scout the perimeter while I prepare? Glynda nodded sharply. Team RWBY, standard reconnaissance formation. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. What about you? Blake asked Naruto. I need 5 minutes to fully reconnect with my powers. He sat cross-legged on the ground, closing his eyes. When I sealed Kagaya before, I had help. This time. You have us, RWBY said firmly. A genuine smile crossed Naruto's face. Yeah, I do. He glanced at Glynda. Keep them safe. I'll need all of you when this gets ugly. As Team RWBY moved out with Glynda, Naruto closed his eyes, golden energy beginning to swirl around him. Shikaku settled nearby, keeping watch. The old lady's really back, huh? The Tanuki rumbled quietly. Thought we'd seen the last of her. So did I, Naruto replied without opening his eyes. But I'm starting to remember why we never could fully destroy her. The forest had become a nightmare landscape. Trees that had stood for millennia now twisted into grotesque shapes, their bark peeling away to reveal pulsing flesh-like tissue beneath. The air itself felt wrong, thicker, charged with power that made their skin crawl. "Stay low," Blake whispered, leading the group through what little cover remained. White Fang patrols every 100 yards. They crept closer to the central clearing, where the transformed divine tree dominated everything. Up close, the fruit-like objects in its branches were clearly visible, each containing what appeared to be a human form in embryonic suspension. "What are those?" Yang whispered. "People," Glynda realized with horror. "The tree is absorbing them." Blake's sharp eyes caught familiar uniforms. Haven Academy students and staff. They must have investigated when the disturbance began. At the tree's base, the three figures came into clearer view. Salem stood slightly apart from Kaguya and Adam, her expression unreadable but her posture tense. Kaguya herself was unlike anything they'd encountered, pale as moonlight with flowing white hair, dressed in ancient robes that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. Most disturbing were her eyes, pale lavender with a rippled pattern, seeming to see in all directions at once. "I can feel her power from here," RWBY whispered. "It's overwhelming." Weiss had her scroll out, recording data. "The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever she's doing is affecting the fundamental forces of nature." "We need to get closer," Glynda decided. "If we can hear their conversation," a twig snapped behind them. They turned to find a White Fang patrol, weapons already raised. "Intruders," the leader shouted. "No time for subtlety." Yang launched forward, gauntlets blazing as she took down the first two guards. Blake's shadows multiplied, confusing the remaining patrolmen while Weiss created glyphs to redirect their fire. "So much for the element of surprise," Glynda muttered, using her telekinesis to disarm the remaining guards. RWBY disabled the last White Fang member with the blunt end of her scythe. "What now?" Her question was answered by a bone-chilling voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Visitors," Kaguya announced, her gaze turning directly to their position despite the distance and obstacles between them. How nostalgic. The forest around them warped, reality shifting, and suddenly they stood in the central clearing, transported instantly through Kaguya's power. Adam smirked at their arrival, hand on his sword. "Right on schedule." Salem's eyes widened slightly at the sight of Glynda, something almost like concern flashing across her features before her expression returned to careful neutrality. "Where's Uzumaki?" she asked quietly. Before anyone could respond, Kaguya raised one delicate hand. "The divine sage approaches. I can feel his chakra awakening." Her lips curved into a smile that held no warmth. "After all this time, we will finally conclude our game." "This is no game," Salem said sharply. "You promised knowledge and power, not wholesale destruction." Kaguya's gaze shifted to Salem. "I promise to help you break your curse." "That remains true. When the infinite Tsukuyomi completes, you will be free, absorbed into the new reality I create." "That's not freedom," Salem countered. "That's annihilation." "A semantic distinction," Kaguya dismissed. "You've lived too long in this flawed world, daughter of my creation. Your perspective has narrowed." Glynda caught Salem's eye, a silent question passing between them. Salem gave an almost imperceptible nod. "The White Fang were promised equality," Adam interjected, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "A world where faunus would no longer suffer human oppression." "And they shall have it," Kaguya assured him. "All will be equal in my embrace." The divine tree pulsed, the fruit-like cocoons glowing brighter as more Haven students were drawn up into its branches, suspended in stasis. "You're feeding them to the tree," RWBY realized, horror in her silver eyes. "Their life energy, their souls." Kaguya studied RWBY with sudden interest. Silver eyes. His little failsafe. She approached with floating steps, not quite touching the ground. "Did he tell you what you truly are, child? What purpose you serve in his grand design?" "Stay away from her," Yang warned, stepping in front of her sister. Kaguya didn't acknowledge the threat, her attention fixed on RWBY. You are a key, crafted to unlock the prison he built for me. A sacrifice designed to ensure his victory should I ever return. That's a lie, came Naruto's voice as golden light erupted at the edge of the clearing. He stood there, transformed, his orange jacket replaced by a glowing golden cloak of pure energy, 9 spectral tails swirling behind him. Beside him towered a massive 9-tailed fox with burning red eyes. Kurama, Salem breathed, recognition clear in her voice. The silver-eyed warriors were never meant to be sacrifices, Kaguya, Naruto continued, stepping forward. They were meant to be immune to your power, to survive even if you won. Kaguya's expression didn't change, but the air around her distorted with power. You remember more than I expected. How inconvenient. Yeah, funny thing about memory seals, they break down eventually. Naruto's eyes shifted fully to crimson. Especially when the person who placed them isn't as skilled as they thought. Team RWBY and Glynda moved slowly toward Naruto, creating distance between themselves and Kaguya. Salem, they noticed, was doing the same, gradually separating herself from the ancient goddess. Your pet fox, Kaguya noted, glancing at Kurama. Another fragment of memory returned. But you are still incomplete, divine sage. Still vulnerable. Adam, sensing the shifting dynamics, backed away from Kaguya. What's happening? This wasn't part of our agreement. Plans evolve, Kaguya replied dismissively. Now that the divine tree has awakened, individual concerns are irrelevant. The fox, Kurama, spoke, his voice deep and rumbling. She's stalling, Naruto. The fruit is nearly ripe. I know. Naruto turned to the assembled group. Kaguya can't be defeated conventionally. Last time, it took combining powers from multiple dimensions to seal her away. Then what's the plan? Glynda asked, never taking her eyes off the goddess. We interrupt the infinite Tsukimi before it can fully activate. Naruto pointed to the glowing cocoons. Those aren't just feeding the tree, they're anchors for the new reality she's creating. Salem stepped forward. The node beneath the tree, if we can access it, we could potentially reverse the process. You would betray me? Kaguya's voice remained calm, but the air around her crackled with energy. After I offered you release from your curse. I've had enough of false promises from gods, Salem replied coldly. Yours included. Kaguya sighed, as if dealing with difficult children. Very well. I had hoped to avoid unnecessary exertion. She raised both hands, her robes billowing outward. All killing ash bones. Spikes of white material formed from her palms, shooting toward Salem with lethal speed. Naruto moved instantly, golden energy deflecting the projectiles. Everyone scatter, he shouted. The tree is the target. Kaguya's attack was the signal for chaos to erupt. White Fang forces swarmed from the forest edges, confused but following Adam's orders to attack the intruders. Kurama roared, sweeping his massive tails to clear a path toward the divine tree. Team RWBY sprang into action. RWBY activated her silver eyes, the power momentarily staggering Kaguya and creating an opening for Weiss to trap the goddess in a time dilation glyph. Blake and Yang coordinated to engage the White Fang, keeping them away from the others. I'll help them, Glynda told Naruto, telekinetically gathering debris to form barriers around RWBY and Weiss. You and Salem focus on the tree. Naruto nodded, turning to Salem. You remember the node's location? Yes. Salem's eyes were determined. But Kaguya has sealed it with her power. We'll need to break through. Then let's move. Naruto created a dozen shadow clones to provide cover as they raced toward the divine tree's base. Kaguya recovered quickly from RWBY's attack, her form shifting as she activated another ability. Amanamanaka. Reality around them lurched, the forest suddenly replaced by a volcanic landscape of flowing lava and toxic fumes. Team RWBY stumbled, disoriented by the instantaneous change in environment. "She's shifting dimensions." Naruto called out. "Stay focused on your immediate surroundings." RWBY coughed in the sulfurous air, struggling to maintain her silver eye activation. "We can't fight here." "We don't have to," Salem replied, her centuries of magical knowledge proving useful as she formed a barrier around them all. "We just need to keep her occupied until Naruto reaches the node." Kagaya floated above the lava, her expression still unnervingly serene. "You cannot win this game, children. I have played it for eons." The world shifted again, frozen tundra replacing volcanic heat so suddenly that frost formed on their weapons. Weiss recovered fastest, creating fire dust platforms beneath their feet. "She's toying with us," the heiress realized. "Testing our adaptability." "Then let's show her what we've got," Yang replied, her semblance flaring as she charged forward. Naruto and Salem had reached the divine tree's base, where twisted roots formed a barricade over what appeared to be a stone doorway embedded in the ground. "The node chamber entrance," Salem confirmed. But Kagaya sealed it with her truth-seeking balls. Naruto studied the black spheres hovering around the doorway. "Those negate any ninjutsu, or what you'd call semblance and magic. We'll need to use natural energy to counter them." "I can provide that," Salem said, drawing on her centuries of accumulated power. "The curse gave me access to natural energy the brothers never intended humans to control." They worked quickly, Naruto forming complex seals while Salem channeled power into them. Meanwhile, the battle raged across the shifting dimensional landscapes as Kagaya transported everyone from frozen wasteland to desert to oceanic abyss in rapid succession. Glynda proved remarkably adaptable, using her telekinesis to create stable platforms regardless of environment. Team RWBY fought with increasing coordination, RWBY's eyes providing momentary advantages, Weiss's glyphs creating paths and opportunities, Blake's shadows multiplying through the dimensional shifts, and Yang's raw power landing the few direct hits they managed against the goddess. Kurama engaged Kagaya directly, massive jaws snapping as his tails created shockwaves of energy. "You're not the only one who remembers the old ways, rabbit goddess." Kagaya's serene mask finally cracked, irritation showing as she countered the fox's attacks. "Insolent fragment. You forget your place." "I know exactly what I am," Kurama growled. "Question is, do you remember what you became?" The distraction worked. Naruto and Salem broke through the seal barrier, revealing stone steps descending beneath the divine tree. "Got it. Everyone, cover our retreat." Kagaya's eyes widened in genuine alarm. "No." The dimensions shifted again, returning them all to the original forest clearing. "You will not interfere with the fruition." The divine tree pulsed ominously, the cocoons glowing brighter as they began to descend toward the ground. The captive students inside stirred, their eyes opening to reveal the same rippled pattern as Kagaya's. "It's starting," Salem warned. "The infinite Tsukimi is activating through the human anchors." Naruto turned to RWBY. "This is where you come in. Your silver eyes were designed to disrupt this specific technique. But I can't control them fully yet," RWBY admitted, panting from exertion. "You don't have to." Naruto placed his hand on her shoulder, golden energy flowing between them. "I can amplify what you already have. Just focus on protecting everyone, on rejecting Kagaya's vision." RWBY nodded, determination replacing doubt. She closed her eyes, concentrating as Naruto channeled power through her. "Glynda, Weiss, create a perimeter." Salem ordered, temporarily taking command while Naruto worked with RWBY. "Blake, Yang, keep the White Fang at bay." The temporary allies worked with surprising cohesion, defending the position while Naruto and RWBY prepared their countermeasure. Kagaya launched attack after attack, increasingly desperate as she sensed their plan. "Enough games," the goddess finally declared. Expansive truth-seeking ball. A massive sphere of destructive energy formed above her, growing rapidly to encompass the entire clearing. Kurama positioned himself between the attack and the others, 9 tails spreading to form a defensive barrier. "Can't hold this long, Naruto," the fox warned. "Just a few more seconds," Naruto replied, the connection with RWBY intensifying as silver light began to mix with his golden energy. "Ready, Silver Eyes?" RWBY nodded, eyes snapping open to release pure white light that shot upward, connecting with each cocoon in succession. The captives within convulsed as Kagaya's influence was temporarily disrupted. "Now!" Naruto shouted, leaping toward the tree with Salem close behind. They dove into the underground chamber as Kagaya's attack connected with Kurama's barrier, the resulting explosion sending shockwaves across the forest. Trees disintegrated, and the clearing became a crater of devastated earth. When the dust settled, Team RWBY and Glynda found themselves protected inside a bubble of Salem's magic, battered but alive. Kurama had dissipated, returning to wherever Naruto's summons originated. The divine tree remained standing, but the cocoons had stopped their descent, suspended in the conflict between Kagaya's power and RWBY's intervention. "Where are they?" RWBY asked, searching for Naruto and Salem. Glynda pointed to the tree's base, where the entrance to the underground chamber glowed with competing energies, golden light fighting against a dark purple force that sought to seal it closed. "They made it inside," she said. "But Kagaya's trying to lock them in." The goddess herself hovered above the crater, her calm facade completely gone, replaced by cold fury. "Insignificant creatures. You delay the inevitable." She raised her hands toward the shattered moon visible in the afternoon sky. "Infinite Tsukuyomi." The moon's broken surface began to glow with the same rippled pattern as her eyes, reflected light washing over the landscape. Wherever it touched, people froze in place, eyes turning upward as they were caught in the divine illusion. "Don't look at the moon," Blake warned, covering her eyes. RWBY's silver eyes activated instinctively, creating a protective aura around their group that repelled the moonlight. "I can't hold this forever." "You don't need to," Weiss realized, pointing to the ground beneath the divine tree. "Look." Golden light spiraled outward from the sealed entrance, forming a massive counter-seal that spread across the crater floor. As it expanded, the tree's roots began to retract, pulling away from the humans they had captured and returning to normal wood. "Naruto," Yang breathed. "He's reversing it." Kagaya screamed in rage, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. She descended toward the entrance, hands forming seals of her own. "I will not be denied again." Underground, Naruto and Salem worked frantically at the heart of the Mistral node. Unlike the previous sites, this one contained no crystal or tree, instead, a pool of golden energy pulsed at the chamber's center, rippling with Kagaya's corrupting influence. "The primary connection point," Salem explained, moving to one side of the pool. "This node links directly to the world tree in Vacuo. If we can purify it, the feedback will disrupt her technique." Naruto positioned himself opposite her, hands already forming seals. "We'll need to work together, your knowledge of remnant-specific energy patterns with my sealing techniques." Salem nodded, centuries of bitterness momentarily set aside in the face of existential threat. "I remember the first time we did this, you know. Parts of it, at least." Naruto's hands paused. "What?" "Before the brothers. Before my curse." Salem's red eyes held no deception. "I was different then. We both were." Understanding dawned on Naruto's face as another fragment of memory clicked into place. "You were, my ally. Against Kagaya. The first time." "More than ally," Salem said quietly, beginning to channel her power into the pool. "But the brothers changed everything. Rewrote reality. Separated us. No time to process the implications." The chamber shook violently as Kagaya's power battered the entrance seal above. "She's breaking through," Naruto warned, refocusing on their task. "We need to complete the counter-seal now." They worked in silent coordination, Naruto creating complex seal structures while Salem infused them with Remnant's natural energy. The golden pool began to purify, corruption receding as their combined power overwhelmed Kagaya's influence. "It's working," Salem observed. "But she'll adapt quickly. Then we change the game." Naruto's hands blurred through dozens of signs. "Last time, we sealed her away. That was a mistake, she always finds a way back. What's the alternative?" Naruto met her gaze across the pool. "We rewrite her. Use the node network to transform her energy rather than contain it." Salem understood immediately. Purification instead of imprisonment. "But the cost will be high," Naruto acknowledged. "I'll need to channel the entire process through myself." "That could destroy you," Salem objected. "Even with your power, got a better idea?" "I'm all ears." Naruto's grin held no fear, only determination. The ceiling cracked as Kagaya's power intensified above them. Dust and debris rained into the golden pool, each particle purified on contact. Salem studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Not alone. I'll anchor you." "Salem, I've lived too long to fear death, divine sage." Her lips curved in a smile that held centuries of sorrow and unexpected hope. "Perhaps this is why I endured, for this moment." Before Naruto could respond, the chamber entrance exploded inward. Kagaya floated through the debris, her white robes billowing around her as power radiated from her form. "How touching," she observed coldly. "History repeats itself." Naruto moved instantly, placing himself between Kagaya and the pool. "History's overrated. I prefer innovation." Golden chains erupted from his back, shooting toward Kagaya with blinding speed. She dodged most but was caught by two, temporarily restraining one arm. "Now, Salem!" Naruto shouted. Salem thrust both hands into the golden pool, channeling its purified energy directly at Kagaya. The goddess screamed as the light connected with her, eating away at her form like golden flames. "Insignificant pests." Kagaya broke free of the chains, retaliating with a barrage of truth-seeking balls that forced Naruto to dodge away from the pool. "You've lost, Kagaya," he taunted, drawing her attention. "The infinite Tsukimi is failing. Your anchors are breaking free." "I am eternal," Kagaya replied, her confidence unshaken despite the setback. "You merely delay the inevitable. This world will be mine, as it should have been from the beginning." Naruto circled carefully, keeping her focus on him while Salem continued working with the pool. "Why this world? Why Remnant? The multiverse is vast, plenty of other places to conquer." "Because this world is special," Kagaya's eyes gleamed with ancient hunger. "The confluence of dimensions here is unique, a perfect seed point for expansion across all realities." "Still thinking small, huh?" Naruto shook his head in mock disappointment. "All that power, and your ambition stops at, conquer everything. Boring." Kagaya's expression darkened. "You know nothing of my ambitions, child." She launched forward with sudden speed, palm striking toward Naruto's chest. "Let me show you." Naruto caught her wrist, golden energy flaring where they connected. For an instant, their minds linked, Naruto seeing flashes of Kagaya's true plans. Not just conquest, but transformation. Remaking all existence in her image, erasing the boundaries between worlds, between life and death, between individual consciousness itself. "That's..." Naruto broke away, genuinely disturbed. "You're insane." "I am inevitable," Kagaya corrected. "The natural evolution of power." While they clashed, Salem had completed her work at the pool. Golden energy now spiraled upward through the chamber, connecting with the seal network Naruto had activated across Remnant. "Naruto," she called. "It's ready." Kagaya realized too late what they had done. She turned toward Salem, hand extended to strike, but Naruto was faster. He flashed between them, taking the blow meant for Salem directly to his chest. Predictable, he gasped through the pain, blood trickling from his mouth as he grabbed Kagaya's wrist. And exactly what I needed. His other hand formed the final seal sign, completing the connection. Golden light erupted from the wound in his chest, spreading rapidly to encompass both him and Kagaya. "What is this?" the goddess demanded, trying to pull away but finding herself bound to Naruto through the energy flowing between them. "Primordial seal technique, divine purification," Naruto explained, grimacing as the power tore through his body. "Not sealing you away this time, Kagaya. Transforming you. Returning your power to its original purpose." Salem moved to Naruto's side, placing her hand on his shoulder. Her own body began to glow as she channeled her considerable power into supporting the technique. "You cannot defeat me," Kagaya insisted, though uncertainty had crept into her voice. "I am the origin of all chakra, all power in this universe flows from me." "Exactly," Naruto replied. "Which means it can flow back to where it belongs." The golden energy intensified, spreading outward from the chamber and up through the divine tree above. The cocoons dissolved, releasing their captives as the tree itself began to transform, reverting from its twisted, parasitic form to something more natural, more harmonious with Remnant's ecosystem. Kagaya's physical form started to dissolve, breaking down into pure energy that flowed into the seal network. She fought desperately, trying to maintain her individuality, but the process had progressed too far. "What have you done?" she demanded, her voice already fading. "Giving you what you really wanted," Naruto answered, compassion mixing with determination. "Connection with everything. Just not as its master." Kagaya's eyes widened in understanding, then acceptance, as her form completely dissolved into the golden light. The energy surged through Naruto, using him as a conduit to spread throughout Remnant's seal network. Salem held him steady as the power threatened to tear him apart. "Stay with me, Naruto. Focus on my voice." The chamber filled with blinding light as the purification reached its climax. Above ground, Team RWBY and Glynda witnessed the divine tree transform entirely, its branches extending to cover the crater with healthy, vibrant growth. The moonlight returned to normal, Kagaya's influence fading as those caught in the infinite Tsukimi awakened, confused but unharmed. "They did it," RWBY breathed, silver eyes wide with wonder as golden light spread across the landscape, healing the devastation. Glynda stared at the entrance to the chamber, concern evident. But at what cost? When they finally reached the chamber, they found Naruto collapsed in Salem's arms, his body translucent and unstable, golden energy still flowing through him like he was more light than matter. "Naruto!" RWBY rushed forward, stopping short when Salem raised a warning hand. "Don't touch him," the white-haired woman cautioned. "He's channeling more power than any physical form was meant to contain." Glynda knelt beside them, assessing the situation with practiced calm despite her inner turmoil. "What happened?" "He used himself as the conduit for Kagaya's transformation," Salem explained, her own form looking more human than they had ever seen her, the last traces of corruption purged by the energy flowing through the chamber. "Her essence is being redistributed through Remnant's seal network, returning to its original purpose." "Which is?" Yang asked. "Balance," came Naruto's weak voice, his eyes flickering open. Kagaya's power was never meant to be concentrated in a single being. It was supposed to flow through all living things, connecting them. He coughed, golden light spilling from his lips. "The brothers perverted that when they arrived, creating artificial divisions between magic, aura, dust. Can we help?" Blake asked, stepping closer. Naruto managed a pained smile. "Yeah, actually. RWBY, your eyes. They can stabilize the flow." RWBY knelt opposite Salem, hesitantly placing her hands near Naruto's dissolving form. "What do I do?" "Just activate them. Think about healing, connecting, protecting." As RWBY's silver eyes glowed, the chaotic energy flowing through Naruto began to stabilize. His form became slightly more solid, though still translucent. "It's working," Salem observed, genuine relief in her voice. But it's not enough. The power needs more anchors, more channels. Use us, Weiss suggested, joining the circle. All of us. Blake and Yang moved into position, completing the circle around Naruto. Glynda hesitated only briefly before placing her hand on his forehead, her telekinetic semblance allowing her to sense and gently redirect the energy flows within him. Everyone, focus on your connection to Remnant, Salem instructed. Your semblances, your aura, they're all expressions of the same underlying energy that Naruto is channeling. They concentrated, each feeling the power differently, RWBY through her eyes, Weiss through her glyphs, Blake through her shadows, Yang through her fiery semblance, and Glynda through her telekinesis. Salem provided the final connection, her immortal nature serving as a perfect bridge between divine power and human capability. Slowly, Naruto's form stabilized. The golden light receded into his body, though his skin retained a subtle glow, the seal markings permanently etched in luminescent patterns. Did it work? Yang asked as Naruto's eyes finally opened fully. He sat up carefully, looking at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. Yeah. Though I'm different now. His gaze moved to Salem, understanding passing between them. We both are. Salem nodded, her own transformation evident. Though still pale with red eyes, the darkness had left her entirely. She appeared human, ageless and powerful, but recognizably part of Remnant's natural order rather than an exception to it. Kaguya? Blake asked. Gone, but not destroyed, Naruto explained, standing shakily with Salem and Glynda's support. Her power has been redistributed through the seal network, returning to its original purpose, connecting all life on Remnant. They made their way out of the chamber, emerging into the transformed clearing. The divine tree remained, but now it was healthy, natural, its branches spread protectively over the recovering landscape rather than parasitically draining it. Haven students who had been trapped in cocoons were being tended to by emergency responders. The White Fang forces had scattered after Adam's retreat, confusion replacing their zealotry in the wake of Kaguya's defeat. What happens now? RWBY asked, looking around at the changed forest. Naruto gazed up at the sky, where Remnant's shattered moon now glowed with subtle golden light along its broken edges. Now, we rebuild. Not just the physical damage, but the connections between people. He glanced at Salem. All people. You expect me to reconcile with humanity after centuries of conflict? Salem asked, though without her usual bitterness. I expect you to be who you really are, Naruto replied. Not who the brother's curse made you. Glynda studied them both, pieces falling into place. You remember everything now, don't you? Both of you. Naruto nodded. Not just my memories, Kaguya's too. When I absorbed her essence, I got the full picture. He looked at Salem. We were partners, Salem and I. The original guardians of Remnant, long before the brother gods arrived. The brothers saw us as a threat, Salem continued, ancient pain evident in her voice. They couldn't destroy us directly, so they separated us. Cursed me with immortality but bound to human form and human limitation. Erased Naruto's memories and banished him from this dimension. But they couldn't completely sever our connection to Remnant, Naruto added. I created the seal network and the silver eyes as a failsafe before they forced me out. Salem endured here, though the brother's curse gradually twisted her perspective. Team RWBY exchanged glances, processing the revelation. So, you two were like, together. Before all this? Yang asked bluntly. A smile played at the corners of Salem's lips, perhaps the first genuine one in millennia. It seems some bonds transcend even divine intervention. Naruto rubbed the back of his head awkwardly. It's complicated. A lot can change in a few thousand years. His gaze shifted briefly to Glynda, whose expression remained carefully neutral. What about Ojban? Glynda asked. How does he fit into this new understanding? Ozma was a good man, Salem said quietly. A pawn of the brothers, but with a noble heart. He deserves peace. The redistribution of Kagaya's power should break the reincarnation cycle, Naruto explained. Ojin, Oscar, will be the last incarnation. He'll remain himself, free to live his own life. RWBY looked thoughtfully at the divine tree. And the silver eyes? What happens to them now? They remain what they always were, protectors. Naruto placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. But against corruption and imbalance, not specifically against Grim or any particular enemy. Speaking of Grim, Weiss interjected, what happens to them in this new arrangement? Naruto gestured toward the forest edge, where they could see the silhouettes of Grim-like creatures moving peacefully among the trees. Unlike the Grim they knew, these beings appeared almost translucent, with glowing blue markings instead of red. They returned to their original purpose too, maintaining balance in the natural world rather than destroying humanity, he explained. Dark and light, creation and destruction, all are necessary parts of a healthy world. The brothers weren't wrong about that principle, just their implementation. Salem's expression darkened slightly. A convenient philosophy after they shattered this world and abandoned it. Hey, I'm not defending them, Naruto countered. Just saying we need both sides of the coin. He looked between Glynda and Salem meaningfully. Balance in all things. The group fell silent, watching as the transformed landscape continued to heal itself around them. Golden energy flowed visibly through the ground in delicate patterns, connecting everything in a network of light. So what now? Blake finally asked. For all of us. Naruto considered the question seriously. We rebuild. Help people understand the changes. The flow of energy, what you called aura and dust, will work differently now. More intuitive, more connected to natural intent rather than rigid systems. Atlas won't like that, Weiss observed wryly. They'll adapt, Glynda replied with unexpected optimism. We all will. Salem studied the young huntresses thoughtfully. The transition won't be easy. There are those who profited from the old divisions, between humans and faunas, between kingdoms, between those with power and those without. That's where you all come in, Naruto said, looking at Team RWBY. The world will need guides who understand both the old way and the new. People who can bridge divides. RWBY straightened, determination replacing exhaustion. We won't let you down. As the sun began to set over the transformed landscape, emergency vehicles and bullheads arrived from Haven Academy and Mistral City, authorities struggling to make sense of what had occurred. Glynda moved to coordinate with them, her organizational skills immediately proving valuable in the chaos. Salem watched from a slight distance, centuries of isolation making the crowd uncomfortable for her. Naruto joined her, both of them observing as Team RWBY helped with rescue efforts. Will you stay? Salem asked quietly. On Remnant? Yes. Naruto's gaze moved between her and Glynda, who was efficiently directing emergency responders. Though I'm not sure where exactly. Salem studied his expression. The Beacon Witch. You've developed feelings for her. Glynda, Naruto corrected gently. And, yeah. She's remarkable. Yes, she is, Salem agreed, surprising him. Strong-willed, intelligent, dedicated to her principles even against impossible odds. A faint smile touched her lips. You always did have a type, divine sage. Naruto laughed softly. I guess I did. He turned to face her fully. Salem, what happened between us, was millennia ago, she finished for him. We are not the same people, Naruto. I spent centuries consumed by rage and bitterness. You lived countless lives across dimensions. We cannot simply resume where we left off. No, he agreed. But we can start something new. Different, but not less. Salem considered this, watching as Glynda organized the evacuation of injured students. Perhaps. Though I suspect your heart has room for more than one connection. She raised an eyebrow at his surprised expression. What? Did you think I spent centuries plotting revenge without developing some insight into human nature? Before Naruto could respond, RWBY approached them, silver eyes bright with excitement despite her exhaustion. They're saying the changes are happening everywhere. Reports coming in from all kingdoms about Grim transforming, energy patterns shifting, it's working. Did you doubt it would? Salem asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. RWBY shrugged. I mean, rewriting the fundamental nature of an entire world. Yeah, kind of a big deal to worry about. Naruto grinned. Fair point. But this world is resilient, and so are its people. He looked toward the horizon, where golden energy continued to spread visibly across the landscape. The hard part comes next, helping everyone understand and adapt to the changes. We'll figure it out, RWBY said confidently. Together. 3 months later Beacon Academy's reconstruction was nearly complete. The tower, damaged during the White Fang's opportunistic attack during the chaos of Kagaya's emergence, now stood taller than before, its top floor transformed into an open-air garden where the New World tree sapling grew steadily. Glynda supervised as students practiced with their newly evolved semblances in the courtyard below. The redistribution of energy throughout Remnant had affected everyone differently, some finding their abilities enhanced, others discovering entirely new aspects to their powers. They're adapting well, Naruto observed, joining her at the balcony. Children always do, Glynda replied. It's the adults who struggle with change. Naruto leaned against the railing beside her, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. The council meeting go okay? As well as could be expected. She adjusted her glasses, a habit she maintained despite no longer needing them, her vision perfectly corrected by the energy transformation. Atlas is still demanding containment protocols for the evolved Grim, despite all evidence that they pose no threat. Ironwood will come around. He's stubborn, not stupid. Glynda smiled slightly. Speaking of stubborn, how was your visit to Menagerie? Productive. Naruto stretched, the seal markings on his arms shifting with the movement. Blake's parents are natural leaders. With the White Fang fragmenting after Adam's disappearance, they're unifying the Faunus community around a new vision. And Salem's involvement isn't causing concerns? Naruto grinned. Turns out being an ancient, formerly corrupted semi-divine being gives her unique credibility when discussing overcoming prejudice. Who knew? The mention of Salem brought a complex expression to Glynda's face, one Naruto had noticed frequently over the past months. You're still uncomfortable with our arrangement, he observed quietly. Glynda sighed, turning to face him directly. Not uncomfortable. Just, adjusting. It's not exactly conventional. Nothing about any of us is conventional, Glynda. That earned a genuine laugh. True enough. She looked out over the academy grounds, where students practiced their evolving abilities. I spent decades believing Salem was the ultimate enemy, the source of all remnant suffering. Reconciling that with who she actually is, it takes time. For her too, Naruto reminded her. Centuries of isolation and bitterness don't vanish overnight, even with cosmic energy redistribution. I know. Glynda's expression softened. I see that when she works with the students. There's a hunger for connection there. For belonging. Naruto nodded, watching as a falcon, one of Salem's new animal messengers, circled overhead before landing on a nearby perch. She's finding her way back to herself. The person she was before the brothers' interference. And what about you? Glynda asked, turning to face him fully. Have you found your way back to yourself? Naruto considered the question seriously. I don't think I can go back to who I was. Too much has changed, I've changed. But I've found something new. His eyes met hers. Someone new. A faint blush colored Glynda's cheeks, though her expression remained composed. Charmer. Just honest. He moved closer, one hand gently touching hers on the railing. The divine sage stuff, the god titles, that was never really me. Just roles I played because the multiverse needed someone to step up. And now? Now I get to figure out who Naruto Uzumaki really is, beyond all the titles and responsibilities. His fingers intertwined with hers. I'm thinking, Beacon Academy's newest combat instructor has a nice ring to it. If the headmistress approves, of course. Glynda's lips curved upward. The position does require extensive qualifications. Multiple references. A thorough interview process. I'm good with thorough, Naruto replied, leaning closer. The falcon cried out sharply, interrupting the moment. Both turned to see it drop a small scroll onto the balcony before taking flight again. Salem's timing remains impeccable, Glynda observed dryly. Naruto picked up the scroll, unfurling it to reveal an elegant script. She's completed the assessment of the Solida's node. The energy distribution is stabilizing faster than expected. He continued reading, a smile spreading across his face. She also says, and I quote, "Stop dancing around each other like awkward teenagers. It's undignified for entities of your respective ages and stations." Glynda couldn't help laughing. She's not wrong. About the energy distribution? Naruto asked innocently. About all of it. Glynda stepped closer, closing the distance between them. I spent my life believing in rigid systems, clear divisions between right and wrong, good and evil. You and Salem, this whole transformation, have shown me the world is more complex and beautiful than I imagined. And that scares you a little, Naruto guessed. Yes, she admitted. But fear has never stopped me from doing what needs to be done. With decisive movement, she closed the final gap between them, her lips meeting his in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened with months of unspoken tension. When they finally separated, Naruto's seal markings glowed faintly, responding to his emotions. Wow. Should have done that a lot sooner. Better late than never, came Salem's voice from behind them. They turned to find her standing in the doorway, elegant in a modernized version of her ancient robes, still primarily white and purple but lacking the corrupted elements of her former appearance. Her hair, once styled in an elaborate structure, now fell in simple waves around her shoulders. I didn't expect you back until next week, Glynda said, composing herself though she didn't step away from Naruto. The Solida situation resolved itself more quickly than anticipated. Salem moved to join them at the balcony, her movements fluid and graceful. The natives there remember the old ways better than most. Their traditions preserved aspects of the original balance despite the brothers' interference. Naruto studied her with concern. You look tired. Crossing continents still requires effort, even with our enhanced abilities, Salem acknowledged. This physical form has limitations, despite what the brothers intended. You should rest, Glynda suggested, surprising herself with the genuine concern in her voice. Salem's lips curved slightly. I will. But first, she withdrew a small crystal from her robes, placing it on the balcony table. This was embedded in the Solida's node. I believe it contains memories. Yours, specifically. She nodded to Naruto. He approached cautiously, picking up the crystal. It pulsed with familiar golden energy at his touch. A memory seal fragment. From before the brothers forced me out. Can you access it? Glynda asked. Naruto closed his hand around the crystal, channeling his energy into it. The seal markings on his skin responded, glowing brightly as they connected with the crystal's patterns. Yes, he said softly as images flooded his mind. It's the original plan for Remnant. Before Kaguya, before the brothers. When it was just the two of us. He looked at Salem. We were creating something beautiful. Salem's expression softened with ancient memory. We were. And now, perhaps, we can again, though differently. Glynda watched them, seeing the connection that spanned millennia yet understanding it didn't diminish what had grown between herself and Naruto over these past months. Somehow, in the new balance that shaped Remnant, there was room for complexity, for connections that defied simple categorization. Ashbin once told me, she said quietly, that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to form bonds even in the darkest times. I think he understood more than he realized. Ozma always was insightful, Salem acknowledged. How is his final incarnation adjusting? Oscar's doing well, Naruto replied. The separation was successful, Ashbin's consciousness has moved on, finding the peace he searched for across all those lifetimes. Oscar remains himself, though with echoes of the memories and wisdom. The three stood together at the balcony, watching as Remnant continued its transformation below them. In the distance, evolved Grimm moved peacefully at the forest edges, no longer driven by hunger for negative emotions. Students practiced abilities that blurred the once rigid lines between semblance, magic, and dust manipulation. It's not perfect, Glynda observed. There's still conflict, still disagreement about the way forward. Perfect would be static, Salem replied. Life requires growth, change, contrast. Naruto nodded. Balance doesn't mean absence of conflict, it means conflict within sustainable bounds. Difference without destruction. Very philosophical, Professor Uzumaki, Glynda teased gently. Hey, I've picked up a few insights over the millennia, he protested with a grin. Salem watched them with an expression that had softened considerably since her transformation, still carrying the weight of centuries but no longer consumed by bitterness. The students will be assembling for the solstice ceremony soon. We should prepare. The solstice ceremony, a new tradition established to help people understand and connect with Remnant's transformed energy, had quickly become an important symbol of the new era. Representatives from all kingdoms would attend this evening's event at Beacon, the most public acknowledgement yet of the changes reshaping their world. As they turned to leave the balcony, Naruto paused, looking up at the shattered moon now visible in the afternoon sky. The broken edges glowed with subtle golden light, a permanent reminder of both ancient conflict and new possibility. You know, he said thoughtfully, we could probably fix that now. Salem followed his gaze upward. The moon? Perhaps. But some scars serve as important reminders. Not all healing means erasing every trace of what happened, Glynda added. Some marks we keep to remember where we've been. Naruto considered this, then nodded. You're right. Both of you. He looked between them, the two remarkable women who represented such different aspects of his long existence, yet who had found unexpected common ground in the new world they were building together. Besides, he added with his characteristic grin, I've kind of grown attached to it. Broken things have character. Salem's laugh was soft but genuine, a sound that would have been unimaginable months ago. Indeed they do, divine sage. Indeed they do. As they left the balcony together, the falcon returned, circling once before flying toward the horizon, a messenger between worlds that were no longer divided, but connected in a balance as ancient as Remnant itself. The solstice ceremony transformed Beacon's main courtyard into a celebration of Remnant's new reality. Students from all academies demonstrated their evolved abilities while representatives from every kingdom observed with varying degrees of wonder and apprehension. Team RWBY had taken central roles in the proceedings, RWBY's Silver Eyes now recognized as a vital part of the world's protective systems, Weiss bridging divides between Atlas's rigid traditions and the new organic flow of energy, Blake working tirelessly to integrate faunus communities into the transformed society, and Young training the next generation in adaptability and resilience. As night fell, Naruto, Salem, and Glynda took their places at the center of the gathering. No longer hidden powers working from shadows, they had become the visible guardians of Remnant's new balance, different in approach and perspective, but united in purpose. Naruto stepped forward, his seal-marked hands raised toward the shattered moon above. Golden energy flowed from him, connecting with every person present before extending outward across Beacon, Vale, and beyond, a gentle reminder of the network that now bound all living things on Remnant. For too long, this world was divided, he addressed the gathered crowd. Between human and faunus, between kingdoms, between those with power and those without. Between life and death themselves. Salem continued seamlessly, her voice carrying effortlessly. Those divisions were artificial, imposed by beings who feared the true potential of connection. Who sought control rather than harmony. Tonight, we celebrate not just what has changed, Glynda completed, but what has always been true beneath the surface. We are all expressions of the same fundamental energy, different aspects of a single, magnificent whole. As if responding to their words, the energy flowing through the crowd intensified, manifesting visibly as networks of golden light connecting every person, every plant, every transformed grim at the forest's edge. For a moment, everyone present could sense what Naruto, Salem, and Glynda had always known, the fundamental interconnection of all existence. RWBY's silver eyes activated instinctively, resonating with the network. Around her, other silver-eyed individuals responded similarly, their ancient purpose as guardians of this connection finally understood. The shattered moon above seemed to pulse in harmony, its broken edges glowing more intensely against the night sky. The journey ahead won't be easy, Naruto continued. Old fears and prejudices don't disappear overnight. But together, we can build something better than what came before. Not perfect, Salem added, but balanced. True to the original vision of this world, a place where difference strengthens the whole rather than dividing it. Glynda completed their shared message: we stand ready to guide, to teach, and to learn alongside all of you. Not as rulers or gods, but as fellow travelers on this new path. As the ceremony concluded, the visible energy gradually faded back to its subtle, ever-present state, felt rather than seen in daily life. The formal portions complete, the gathering transformed into a celebration, music and food bringing together people who would have been enemies mere months ago. Team RWBY found Naruto at the edge of the festivities, watching with evident satisfaction. Not bad for a divine seal god who couldn't remember his own name a few months ago, Yang teased, handing him a drink. Naruto laughed. I had help. Lots of it. His gaze moved to where Salem and Glynda were engaged in conversation with representatives from Vacuo and Atlas, somehow managing to find common ground between the kingdom's radically different approaches. So what happens next? Blake asked, genuine curiosity in her amber eyes. That's the best part, Naruto replied, his expression brightening. For the first time in, well, forever. I don't know exactly. The future's unwritten. We get to figure it out together. RWBY's silver eyes sparkled with excitement. That sounds perfect. Not perfect, Naruto corrected gently. But right. Balanced. As the celebration continued around them, he looked up once more at the shattered moon, no longer a symbol of divine destruction, but of resilience. Of beauty found in imperfection. Of a world that had been broken but was healing on its own terms. In that moment, the divine sage felt something he hadn't experienced in countless millennia, the simple joy of belonging. Not as a god or a weapon or a memory, but as himself, Naruto Uzumaki, finally home. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.